with Sam Cedar.
The destiny of America is always safer in the hands of the people than in the conference rooms of any elite.
Sam Cedar.
They are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
The Majority Report with Sam Cedar.
Ever get the feeling you've been cheated?
It's Thursday, August 13th, 2020. I'm Matt Leck on a Matt, Brendan, Jamie, and Matt Binder Thursday. Broadcasting closer to the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal than ever before in the heartland of America, Brooklyn, USA. On today's program, a throwback Michael interview. This time, his first interview on the Lava Jato scandal in Brazil. It's amazing because this is in 2016, very early after I started, and Michael knows pretty much everything and has the right analysis right from the beginning. Also on the program, the United States reported more than 1,500 new deaths caused by COVID-19 on Wednesday, our deadliest day since May. Some more awful numbers. 7.8 million children are in households behind on rent. 6.5 million didn't get enough to eat, and 3.4 million are in both situations. A top Fed official says we reopened too quickly for a V-shaped recovery. The Trump administration will now attempt to make that a matter of handwriting. Just under 1 million unemployment claims filed last week, the first time that number wasn't over 1 million since March. The bad news is these numbers are expected to be more permanent than the early filings, and the pace of hiring has slowed. As this economic catastrophe accelerates, McConnell and the Trump administration look ready to hold further coronavirus relief hostage into September. Also, mail sorting equipment is being pulled from the post office as Trump's deliberate sabotage on the U.S. Postal Service continues. And in Bolivia, this is day 11 of the general strike and blockade in protest of the right-wing coup government leader Janine Áñez repeatedly delaying the Bolivian elections. Who would have thought that an unelected reactionary would have trouble administering elections that would remove them from power that she didn't win democratically to begin with? All that and more on today's Majority Report. I'm trying to write these headlines and you want to write some jokes into it, and then it's like, oh, millions of kids hungry and facing possible eviction. Grim times. Hi, Brendan. How are you?
Hey, Matt. Yeah, I can sympathize with that. There's nothing funny about that at all.
No, it's brutal. I hope everyone's doing well listening to this. I know there's a lot of pain going on right now because of the lack of response that this government's having for the coronavirus. On other news, today would have been Michael's 37th birthday. So Michael, Thursday throwback. So happy birthday out there, Michael. I just want to set up this interview quick before we get to it, make sure I have it ready. This was April 19th, 2016. Again, I have to say this is exactly 3 years to the day that our Los Angeles live show was, which was maybe the triumphant moment of TMBS for me in my mind. So 3 years before that LA live show, he was doing his first full show on what was going on with Lula, the Lava Jato Lawfare coup, and what was going on with Dilma Rousseff too. Michael's analysis is, and the questions he asks here are very astute right from the beginning. I mean, he'd been doing this for a while. He did some of it with Binder too, but this is him really kind of coming into his own. And it's funny, people always made fun of Michael for how much he talked in interviews. And I can say that that's hard to do and sound not like an idiot. I interviewed one of Michael's friends, Drew Mikhael, with David Griscom and Alicia Brooks on TMBS on Tuesday night about the Beirut explosion and the rage. And interviewing is something that I'm going to have to, learn to do a little bit better. And it's difficult. And so I watched these early Michael interviews with a lot of admiration because he's very good at setting things up, putting things on the table, putting too much things on the table. But I think it's better to put too much on the table than too little. So yeah, we're going to go with this now. This is with Anthony Pereira. I believe he's a professor. Michael will introduce him. And it's about a half-hour long interview. And we'll do a clip with Jamie and maybe Matt Binder, I think, before the fun half. So we'll see you folks in about a half an hour.
Welcome back to the Majority Report. I am Michael Brooks, and joining us now is Professor Anthony Pereira. He is the director of the Brazil Institute at King's College, London. Professor, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Michael.
So wanted to speak with you about this unfolding crisis in Brazil. There is a pretty sort of broad narrative to this that you see in, the American press, and actually apparently emanating from a lot of the Brazilian press, that this is a simple question of corruption, civil society uprising. It seems to be a bit more complicated than that. But in order to situate the conversation, can you help anchor us in understanding who these two figures are? That's Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, President Dilma Rousseff. He was the former president, and he's a founder of the Workers' Party, which they are both members of. Take us into their history, maybe starting with Lula.
Right. These two figures, Lula and Dilma, in a way represent two of the most important forces in the Workers' Party. It was formed at the end of the 1970s. And one anchor of it was the trade union movement. So the trade union movement in the ABC region, mostly auto workers, had some strikes in 1979 that really defied the military dictatorship. Brazil had a dictatorship from 64 to 85. And Lula, as the leader of the auto workers in that region, emerged as one of the key leaders of the opposition to the military dictatorship. So he became president of the party early on. He was always the most important leader. He ran for president in 89, 94, 98, and finally won presidency in 2002. Dilma comes out of the armed left because there were some mostly young people, mostly students, who decided in the late 60s, when the regime got much more repressive and cracked down, they decided to take up arms. And so there were lots of kind of splintered left groups. The Communist Party was actually not in favor of armed action against the dictatorship. And a lot of them were very severely dealt with. So Dilma herself was arrested, tortured quite badly, and ended up 3 years as a prisoner. And so those two forces came together in the late 70s, early 80s. And they were also joined by people who were influenced by liberation theology. Mm-hmm. And the Workers' Party also attracted a lot of middle-class intellectuals, people from the universities, people from the public sector. And it was a really small party at the beginning. And in fact, a lot of its features were that it was more of a sort of conglomeration of social movements than it was an actual political party. And there was a really interesting internal debate in the party in the 1980s of how much like a professional party they should become. But they did become a very professionalized party. They started winning a lot of mayorships, a lot of governorships, and as I said, they got the presidency in 2002. Lula's administration started in 2003, and they've now had they've been the major party in a coalition government at the national level for 14 years. And so part of what this is about is getting the Workers' Party out of that position.
Absolutely, and we'll certainly get to that. But to underlie this history, it actually reminds me in some ways, and correct me if I'm wrong, but there was a debate in the 80s in European, particularly German Green Party, between the kind of Relos or Fundies, and that similar kind of debate. Or are we sort of a political party that organizes activists, or do we want to actually take and assume power? And Lula, I believe, ran for the presidency of Brazil 3 times before winning in 2002. What did he have to do both in terms of the kind of practical mechanisms inside the Workers' Party and in terms of his broader image, just even from a PR perspective for the public or from a policy perspective, his commitments on macroeconomic policy to get there on the fourth try?
That's a great question, because that is a pivotal moment in the history of the party. As you said, it had a kind of Green Party social movement feel to it for a long time, and it was always internally quite democratic and very programmatic and ideological. It was not into the kind of trading of favors that's common in other parties in Brazil at that time in its history. After Lula lost the third time in '98, he went to the party and he said, I will be willing to run again, but I need to have more control over the campaign. It's going to be a Lula campaign and not a PT campaign. And the party conceded to that request, and he ran in 2002 with a conservative sort of center-right vice presidential candidate from the Liberal Party, who was actually evangelical. He made a broad coalition. He wrote a letter to the Brazilian people in the summer of 2002 in which he said that he would respect contracts and he would respect the debt that Brazil had at that time with the IMF. So he sort of accepted the macroeconomic framework that existed at that time, which was quite neoliberal, and he ran on a much broader coalition. And he changed his image. He talked about peace and love. He had nicely tailored suits. He trimmed his beard. He looked a lot more. He looked a lot less threatening,
less militant, more cuddly.
Exactly. He
Right.
became cuddly. Became kind of avuncular. Softened his tone, and so he won in 2002. And I would say between 2002 and then 2006, when he gets reelected, he actually also shared the spoils of governance more. He brought in the PMDB to a greater extent. That's the kind of center-right party that's now against Dilma Rousseff, but they were his allies at that point. And I think one of the really interesting things that happens between the 2002 and 2006 election is that Lula loses a lot of his middle-class support between 2002 and 2006, partly because his economic policies were trying to target the poor. The rich were doing very well, the poor were doing quite well, and the middle class wasn't really getting that much. So they abandoned him to quite a large extent. But he picks up the unorganized poor, the people who are really on low incomes, and that's more than compensates for his loss of middle class support. But it's a very different sort of base of support for Worker Party presidents since the 2006 election. And you can pretty much go down the income scale. As you go down in income, you're more likely to find people who vote for PT presidential candidates.
Because there's no doubt, just as an addendum, that it seems very clearly established that, regardless of any, decisions or corruption or anything else, both the administrations of Lula and Dilma have certainly delivered in some ways for the extreme poor. Like, that support from the poor is not just symbolic. It's been very real. It's been real delivery that's made a difference in income, food security, and everything else. That has been a very successful and real part of both of their records, and probably particularly Lula. So what strikes me, though, as you say this, and which is fascinating, and I want you to kind of use this question to lead us into the present accusations and present crisis. But in the Western press, or in the American press, the European press, when Lula was first kind of emerging on the stage, and through, like, as you say, his first term, and then there was a kind of broad period. I think Lula left office as probably the most popular politician in the world who actually faces democratic accountability. He was extraordinarily popular. Right. There was this idea that that was always reported that he started on the hard left, and now he's kind of he's center leftish. He's kind of a social democrat. People even compared him to sort of the Tony Blair, Bill Clinton vein, which I think is a stretch, to be fair to Lula, frankly. Yeah. But what struck me, especially as this scandal has kind of unfolded, was that part of, quote unquote, moderating in Brazilian politics is making peace and alliances with systemic corruption. So in a certain sense, it's this inversion now where, all of a sudden, Lula and Dilma have been so corrupt, supposedly, but accepting and acquiescing to a certain degree of that was part and parcel of the first moderation image, which everybody wanted to praise him for. So if you could kind of riff on that and then use that to open up what's happening now, that would be great.
Sure. I mean, I think what you bring up is a really important point, and it's why that there are people on the left in Brazil who feel really let down by the Workers' Party, who thought that the Workers' Party, because it was, at least in opposition, principled and ethical and talked about transforming Brazil and transforming the traditional corrupt way of doing politics in Brazil, they feel let down because rather than the PT really changing the political system, they were in fact changed by it, and they became more like all those other politicians and parties that they criticized when they were in opposition. But in some ways, I think it was, and I think Lula has a lot to do with this. Lula was never really highly ideological. He wasn't someone who was steeped in the history of the labor movement, for example, or about socialism. He was a very pragmatic negotiator. He was a good negotiator. He would get good deals for his members. And I think he was always that kind of trade union leader who would talk to everybody and seek a consensus. Right. And he had around him, when he was elected in 2002, a team of people like José Dirceu, who was his chief of staff, and Palocci, who was his finance minister, who were also extremely powerful, extremely pragmatic, and oriented towards power. And they realized, we can maintain party discipline and we can be focused on program, but we know that all of these other parties are not. Right. And so we're going to have to play ball with them, and we're going to have to give them parts of the federal budget. We're going to have to give them ministries. And of course, I think there's pretty compelling evidence that they got involved in the same sorts of corruption that other parties and politicians have been involved in. So in a way, it was the price that they felt, I think, that they were willing to pay to change Brazil and to do some of the things that they did, which was, for example, this conditional cash transfer program, which lifted people out of poverty, the increasing access to university and technical education through a really big loan program loan and grant program to low-income students, affirmative action in the universities, trying to promote gender equality, right. All of these things. So, in their minds, I think these pragmatic compromises were what they needed to do to deal with the reality of the Brazilian political system.
What are some of the specifics of some of these corruption allegations targeting Dilma and Lula, and how has the judiciary, it seems, again, like there's probably some legitimacy to some of these charges, and if you could, outline them, that would be helpful. Mm-hmm. But, it does seem at the very least that, as an example, leaking conversations that are part of an investigation between Lula and Dilma in an effort to embarrass them is, at the very least questionable. Exactly. And even as, they have been targeted, all of the major political parties are implicated in this. So, I guess exactly. Play out that contradiction there.
Well, you're absolutely right. We saw this spectacle on Sunday of the members of the lower house voting to impeach Dilma. And the guy presiding over that session was Eduardo Cunha, who's been charged by the attorney general of receiving a $5 million bribe to get a contract from Petrobras, the state-owned oil company, and of also having undeclared bank accounts in Swiss banks with millions of dollars in them. So, right. This is not a spectacle in which clean politicians are impeaching a corrupt one. There's corruption is endemic in Congress. What the car wash investigations have revealed, investigation led by a judge called Sergio Moro in Curitiba, what they found was that, and what they're alleging, is that that had contracts with Petrobras would routinely over invoice or over bill for those contracts. The kickbacks would then go to executives in the oil company, but they would also be funneled to politicians for campaigns. And if you read the Brazilian press, you'd be forgiven for thinking he was the only party benefiting from this scheme. But this was a very, very widespread scheme and involved a lot of parties in the coalition.
Professor,
about 50 people.
I'm sorry. Have you moved or anything? Because your connection was excellent, and we've just gotten a bit choppy.
Okay, I think I moved away from the mic there.
Oh yes, get back to the mic, please. Thank you.
Is that better?
That's significantly better. Yes, great.
Okay,
go right ahead.
So there's about 50 Congress who have been implicated in this car wash investigation in this kickback scheme, and that includes the lower house. It includes Michel Temer. The thing is, Dilma. There's no evidence that is produced yet that Dilma, benefited from any of this corruption, but she was chairman of the board on Petrobras during Lula's second term. So, there what her critics allege is that there's a sin of omission, if not commission, in terms of her role in Petrobras, an oil company. But that's not actually the subject of the impeachment charge.
Yeah, what exactly? Because that's the other kind of odd thing about it with regards to Dilma. What is the impeachment charge against her, and how does she sort of get dragged into what, as you already outlined? First of all the parties are implicated. Mm-hmm. In fact, it seems on the face of it, and again, not to, obviously I sort of have a personal soft spot for Lula, that's clear, and I have a kind of more general sympathy to the Workers' Party. But, the evidence against Lula might be there, but it's certainly more tenuous than it is for many other leading players in this, where it seems a lot more clear in terms of, money in accounts and things actually moved. But with Dilma, it seems like, there's literally nothing there. It just, it's as if they got the Republicans had the votes together to just impeach Obama because they don't like him.
Yeah, I think it's not a very robust case. You do get constitutional lawyers saying that this is an impeachable offense, but just to point out how paradoxical the whole thing is, she's accused of signing orders that delayed payment banks so that the fiscal deficit looked lower than it actually was. This is something, these same orders have been signed by Michel Temer, the vice president, who's scheduled to take over from her as an interim president once the Senate accepts these impeachment proceedings. So I think it looks like a double standard. It looks like selective invocation of the law. And in fact, these are common practices in mayorships and governorships. They've been done by previous presidents. The jurisprudence that declares that these are unconstitutional acts is very recent. And we have to remember, too, in November of 2014, right after her reelection, there were people calling for impeachment then. Right. They didn't have a reason for it. They just were upset that she had won reelection, and this was the fourth consecutive Workers' Party presidential victory. So I think it was something that was convenient. And what was noticeable about the Sunday vote in the lower house is that almost nobody voting yes mentioned these pedaladas, as they're called, or these sort of creative bookkeeping acts of Dilma. They talked about the Petrobras corruption. They talked about morality. They talked about their families. They talked about how the country was ungovernable and how the economy had to improve. I mean, it was so diffuse that everything was invoked almost. Very rarely the actual impeachment charges were mentioned. Well,
that's actually brings me to a couple of interconnected things here too, because as I say, Lula left office, I believe it was in 2012 or 2010. I don't remember the specific year.
2010, yeah.
2010. Yeah. And he left, as I say, with one of the most, I think, the highest approval rating of anybody in the world who was actually, he wasn't. Yeah. He wasn't Gaddafi, right? Like, these were real polls. Right. Everybody loved him. He was incredibly popular. And, Dilma, who has this fascinating personal background, but did not have an electoral political background, he kind of handpicked her. She didn't have the same kind of charisma that he had, but she's obviously, very smart, very capable. And with his stamp of approval, she was elected and then reelected on her own merits in 2014. And so it seems like, one track that's happened here is that the Brazilian economy has just stalled, and that always creates general anger. So that's kind of So those tracks of, okay, you don't have a president who's as charismatic or persuasive. The economy stalled. And then the third track seems to be that, the level of opposition from the media to the opposition parties to the judiciary seems to kind of, it sort of seems to indicate we could never win. It looks like Lula might run again in 2008 and 18. And we're not, like, we just have to stop them somehow. And Lula, ironically, for a guy who, really moderated to get himself where he was and with all of that entailed, he's out speaking to the international press saying, like, look, this is a kind of old style Latin American coup. And almost as if the lesson after all of this time in power, and even in today's modern circumstances, that the old oligarchic dynamics are still at play, and even a moderation as much as the Workers' Party and the delivery across sectors is still not going to work, because fundamentally the elites don't want us to govern. And that seems like what the fault lines have turned into.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think the contrast between the really rough time that Dilma's having and the much easier time that Lula had, I think it's based on three limitations of Workers' Party rule. I guess the fourth could be there is misogyny in society as well.
Sure.
And I think that's a factor that plays against Dilma in the same way that it plays against Hillary Clinton, say, in this system. But the three limitations are: one is that I think Lula personalized the party in a way that probably wasn't healthy. So rather than a competitive election inside the party, what you had in 2010 was him as this very popular president saying, I'm going to pick this woman who's my chief of staff, who's never won an election to anything, and she's going to be my successor. And I think that sort of went against the tradition of the Workers' Party, which was to be programmatic, to be internally democratic, and to be more about to be a party that was kind of bigger than any individual in it. So people started talking in 2010 about Lulismo or Lulaism, as opposed to PTism or the worker. So the person started to become more important than the party, and that's a limitation, I think. And you can see it in the lack of other candidates. So Lula's the only plausible candidate for them in 2018. The second limitation, I think, is that they did help the poor, but they helped the poor mostly through mechanisms that increase the purchasing power of the poor. So increasing access to credit, the social transfers. So you got a social income if you were really poor, access to training and education that lowered the skills gap in the labor market. What they weren't able to do as much is structurally transform the country. So, for example, improve the quality of education, improve the quality of healthcare, provide good public transportation. So as purchasing power was going up amongst the lower income, and you got the growth of what the Brazilians call Class C, between sort of 1,000 and 4,000 reais. They call it a middle class, but it's really, we'd probably understand it as a working class. You didn't get the corresponding improvements in public goods that would have made people's lives better. So you had more people buying cars and worse traffic. You had crime was bad because public security wasn't keeping up with the rates of crime. You had sort of unlivable situations for a lot of commuters in cities. And that was a big limitation. And I think the final limitation is that when they went in 2006 and they set that pattern of getting most of their votes from the low income, it worked electorally. But what it meant was a lot of the shapers of opinion in institutions like the judiciary, in institutions like the media, to a lesser extent in universities. There's still a lot of supporters of the Workers' Party in universities, but outside of that, most middle-class people are anti-Workers' Party. It set a dynamic in which they could win elections, but they didn't have a big cross-class coalition that could make the case for their legitimacy throughout the whole society. And you got this polarization. If you're depending mostly on the bottom half of the income distribution, you can win the votes. When it comes time to debates like these things about the impeachment, the loudest voices in these discussions are often the anti-Workers' Party voices. And you've got an electorate in Brazil, 60% of the people don't identify with any party. And the Workers' Party has the highest party identification in the electorate, but it's only about 10, 11%, and it's probably actually, that's, a little while ago. It's probably fallen since then. And they have to deal with a Congress which has about 28 different parties. So I think that lack of a cross-class coalition is really, in terms of their electoral support, means that they're constantly getting hammered by the media, by the mainstream media. And I think the judiciary as well has been, as you point out, with these leaks, it's been highly selective in the information that it's leaked, and it's tended to target the Workers' Party, even though the corruption is much more generalized and systematic.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, as we move towards the final sort of question here, but just to underlie that, it seems like in these two sort of failings of the Workers' Party, and again, I mean, obviously, there's a major problem in terms of the way the judiciary, other political parties, and the media have acted and are acting. I think arguably they're seriously undermining the democratic credibility of Brazil in some respects. But it's very interesting that in the failures to kind of keep a broad-based coalition, and then in the kind of failures to address more structural deficits, there isn't the kind of structural like there's people's lives are better, which you can never underestimate, but there isn't. Sure. It's like, because Dilma's had to do austerity, and then and when you cleaned up, we did a report on what happened during the World Cup, and certainly the Workers' Party government was quite brutal in enforcing the edicts of the World Cup, and that's contradictory on every level of the kind of traditional worker party ethos. So by not doing those kind of deeper, more durable jobs, ironically, that wasn't pragmatic because it set the stage for its own crisis in a certain way.
Absolutely. And one way to look at this impeachment, and it doesn't jive with the sort of gulp or coup rhetoric, is that this is an inside job. This is the PT's own coalition partner, the PMDB, deciding to dump them and to get rid of the president. And they're doing it very well because the PT has been so dependent on these guys. It's a bit like House of Cards. Michel Temer, the vice president, is leading the coalition in the lower house to vote against his own president. But I think you could fault the Workers' Party on environmental issues and indigenous issues as well. When you saw how the Dilma Rousseff government reacted to the Belo Monte controversy, the big dam in the Amazon, and these structural transformations are hard. I mean, for example, they could have tried to change the tax system. Brazilians, the overall level of taxation in the economy is high, but the highest tax rate is 27%. There's very little taxation of wealth, land, and property. They could have tried to take that on. They could have tried structural reforms. Those were difficult to do, and I suppose you could say that they're paying the price for that in a way. I mean, under Lula, it was very significant that not only poverty decreased, but income inequality, as measured by the Gini coefficient, came down. And that was really significant because that hadn't happened in a long time in Brazil. And Brazil is still one of the most unequal countries in the world when it comes to the distribution of income. But what did not get looked at during that period was, of course, inequality of wealth. And this is why Thomas Piketty's book is very relevant to Brazil, because wealth inequality, I mean, we don't really know, we don't really have the statistics, but wealth inequality may well be greater even than income inequality. And there are lots of ways for the wealthy to hang on to their wealth in Brazil. And, that was something that the Workers' Party just wasn't able or willing to take on. And I think that's where a really interesting debate on the left is happening, is sort of what could the Workers' Party have done that they didn't do? How much allowance do you have to give for the realities of the Brazilian political system? And I think there are some people who are a little bit starry-eyed who say that the Workers' Party could have absolutely transformed Brazil. And we have to remember, Lula got something like 60% of the vote typically in his two elections for president in the second round. His party never got more than about 30% of the vote. So they were coming into Congress where they had maybe 20% of the seats in both houses, and they had to transform those 20% into a majority in Congress. That's how difficult the system is. Right. So I think you do have to make some allowances for how that system works.
Absolutely. I mean, and as a final question, and this is the sort of, generic, impossible to answer question, but take it in any direction you want to take it in. What's the sort of general what happens next from, the most kind of immediate to even the relevancy of that conversation inside the left in Brazil? I mean, whatever you think is most relevant in terms of what's going to kind of come out of this. Sure.
Yeah, I watched that vote on Sunday, and there was a kind of climate of a big party. When the 342nd deputy voted to impeach, there's this sense that this is it's going to be a big change in Brazilian politics. I think it's just one little step and an unfolding drama. It's not going to be easy for any government right now in Brazil to govern, whether it's led by Dilma Rousseff or Michel Temer, because the country is so polarized. And it's also paralyzed. The government isn't able to do the kinds of reforms that it needs to do to get out of recession. Now you're looking at maybe a second year in a row where the economy contracts by almost 4%. This is a big crisis for Brazil. But I think in some ways it wouldn't be terrible from the point of view of the left and the Workers' Party. They're not the same thing, but to go out of power at this point, to not have their president in, because they could rethink what their values are. They could prepare to run as an opposition party in 2018, and they could sort of have the kind of moment that the Labour Party's been having here in Britain with Jeremy Corbyn as its leader. Corbyn is not really a plausible prime minister, I don't think, in anybody's mind, but he's brought in a huge sort of grassroots resurgence of people joining the party and remembering what they were really what they were interested in before Blair and New Labour sort of made them a kind of copy of the Conservatives. So I think that it wouldn't be entirely unhealthy for the Workers' Party to be out and to sort of rejuvenate itself, but then also for a really ample debate to happen, because it's not clear that the party is going to stay together. You may have people saying, well, you've already had a lot of defections, but you may have more, especially after the municipal elections that are coming up in October. You may have people like Tarso Genro from Rio Grande do Sul saying, this party, it's not going to work anymore as a vehicle for our aspirations. We have to found something else. So that could happen.
Fascinating. Professor Anthony Pereira, I appreciate your time immensely. And Professor Pereira is the director of the Brazil Institute at King's College in London. Thank you so much, Professor. I hope we have a chance to talk again sometime soon and kind of continue following what's happening even beyond the crisis point.
Thanks a lot, Michael.
Thank you.
All right, folks. There you have it. Another fun fact about that episode, that 4/19/2016 episode, is that's the first Michael Day that Michael and I did solo in the studio. There's no Kelly that day, so it's just Michael and I. And I think that was probably the first time I ever did produce a show by myself at all, which was, Brendan, I think you've done that before, right?
I've done it a few times, and I one time when you were out for TMBS, I produced a TMBS show without ever being in a pre-production or anything like that, which was fun.
Interesting. I forgot all about that. Yeah, let's let Jamie and Matt Binder in now. Yeah, but I don't know, some pretty good. I mean, maybe some people might take exception to the Corbyn thing, although it kind of looked like that was the prevailing sentiment among British voting public. But overall, I think a very interesting interview, and it's funny how much of the talking points from Michael were the same and were validated. Hey, Matt.
Yep.
Hey, what's up? Do you hear me?
I do. Yep.
Perfect. I got my new setup for you guys today.
Yeah, that camera is something.
Yeah, right. Look, you can see me really good, can't you?
Oh, you guys are making me so jealous.
Yeah. Just in time for Michael's birthday. I got to look good for Michael's birthday,
Wait, so there's a new camera?
It is a new camera. I'm using like a legit like mirrorless Panasonic webcam. Like
wow, okay, yeah.
Status, yeah. And I got it connected to this HDMI input device that goes to my computer, and then I got still got the USB mic, but that's the next upgrade. That's the next upgrade.
I mean, I will say I kind of like the soft focus of my computer webcam because I feel less of a compulsion to like put on makeup or whatever. And, you know, I am above all things quite lazy, but I mean, I already got Sam to spring for this mic stand. So maybe, who knows? Maybe we can get a little extra technology going. I don't want to push it.
You got the better audio than me right now because I'm looking and that's an XLR cable going into your mic, which means that it's analog, which means it sounds better than my digital mic. So, and this is primarily an audio show. So, I mean, you focused on the right thing. Whereas I'm, I guess I'm vain and wanted to look good.
Well, I guess when it comes to my face, maybe I like to leave them wanting more. I don't know.
Ooh, I like that.
Guys, should we do this clip about Eric Trump talking about V-shaped recoveries?
Oh,
what's the V? What's the V that the British people do? Is it this one where it's like it means like F you? Is it this one? Here's my V-shaped recovery. Here you go. Take that for your recovery.
The V is for victory. It's victory, folks. So noted economist Eric Trump appeared on Fox and Friends today with the unenviable task of spinning these latest unemployment numbers to make it look a little bit rosier. We've got nearly 1 million new jobless claims this week. Millions are under threat of eviction. And, the pandemic is still killing people. But maybe you're just looking at it the wrong way.
All right, we've got a Fox News alert. Look at the number right there. The weekly jobless claims for first-time unemployment is out, and 963,000 filed for unemployment benefits for the first time last week.
Listen, it's not a great number, but in the scheme of things, it is a great number. That's less than what experts predicted, and the first time claims fell below 1 million in 21 weeks.
About 57 million Americans have filed for unemployment since the pandemic started. That is the lowest number, under 1 million, since March. Let's bring in Eric Trump, Executive Vice President for the Trump Organization and son of our president. Good morning to you, Eric.
Good morning, guys. Good morning, Ainsley. How are you?
We're great. When you hear that news, what are your thoughts?
Well, listen, if you look at the last 3 months, right? Look at the last 3 months. 9.3 million Americans went back to work. If you look at last month alone, if you look at July, right, 1.8 million jobs were created, which blew away expectations. Then you look at, this month, you look at the claim that you're talking about right now, well under 1 million, which again blew away expectations. My father always said that you're going to have a V-shaped recovery. And look at where the Dow Jones is right now. I mean, the Dow Jones is at 28,000 right now. Look at where the NASDAQ is. NASDAQ is all-time highs. I mean, the Dow is literally 1,000 points off of all-time highs. You know what that means for, 401ks and pension plans and our economy in general? Our economy is roaring back to life. It is roaring back to life, and we should all be very proud of that as Americans, as much as kind of the mainstream media wants to ignore it, guys.
Wow. It's roaring, folks. You hear that? So, I guess let's talk about a few different parts of this, so then we'll open it up to broader discussion. The jobs being created are largely not good ones. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I have seen news stories about Amazon going on a giant hiring spree. They don't care if the jobs are good jobs. They just want to force people to work for not enough wages with not enough safety. But the stock market, okay, maybe I'm homeless, I can't pay my rent, I can't afford to buy food, but my 401k, which is money that I don't actually get to have for years and years, that's doing great. Nothing to see here, folks, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's so aggravating. It reminds me of the CNBC segment from earlier. This was about in end of May. Andrew Ross Sorkin and Joe Kernan getting into a pretty heated argument because Joe Kernan's like, the numbers are great, Andrew. Why are you telling everyone to panic?
Tesla, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And Andrew's like, well, people are dying and there's a tremendous amount of suffering. And it's like, and Kernan, well, I just want to play this. I have it here actually, and we can look at who's. So I mean, I don't think Andrew Ross Sorkin is exactly DSA, but I mean, we can see whose side of the argument came out.
Tell us about what's happening
Still
right
looking
now.
at the coincident and lagging indicator. Let's see. For a while, it was how can stocks be where they are because of oil prices? Remember that was your take then.
Right.
How can it be based on where interest rates are right now? Then it could be how can stocks be, and then it was every single discussion you have over the weekend is about how can stock prices be here when the economy is here. Right. Now it's going to be your earnings.
And just to be clear, it's because the Fed gave them trillions of dollars. That's why.
They nationalized the stock market, basically.
Yeah, that's something the CNBC doesn't really want to tell or explicitly say on broadcast.
Here when the economy is here. Right. Now it's going to be your earnings. But can you see how that probably isn't the coincidence? The stuff right in your face. We're going to have David Lebovitz on. He's going to say every client he talks to is asking him, how can the stock market be here when everything else is going?
And that's the question. And there are a lot of smart people who have that view. You may not have that view.
Why is that the smart people? They've been wrong for 35%. Why are they smart? Just because they can see what's right in front of their nose? That doesn't make them smart. It makes them.
Joe, you missed it on the way down too.
Makes them not savvy about the market.
Joe, you missed it. You missed Joe. You missed it 100% on the way down, and you missed the 100,000 deaths. So we can have this debate back and forth, and you can try to question the questions I'm asking. But there are smart people, including your friend Stan Druckenmiller, who's argued that the market has been over. Hold on. I'm not going to do this with you, Joe. Every morning you try to question the questions I'm asking. These are questions that investors are asking every single morning. I am just trying to get through some of this clutter. I may be right. I may be wrong. Investors may be right. They may be wrong. That's what makes a market. But it doesn't make people a good person or a bad person. It doesn't make it right to act the way you are. I'm sorry.
Okay. You yelled at the poor guy about the guy yesterday with masks. Is like, why are you yelling at me now?
I'm not, Joe.
You just yelled again. I don't know. I'm just trying to.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
No, you're not. No, you're not, Joe. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Go ahead with the news.
You panicked about the market, panicked about COVID, panicked about the ventilators, panicked about the PPE, panicked about ever going out again, panicked that we'd ever get back.
By the way, PPE shortages still occurring in various hospitals around the country. We still haven't sorted that problem out, even though it's, it's kind of one of them. I mean, I don't want to even say it's minor. We should have absolutely sorted it out by now.
The normal.
Joseph, you didn't panic about anything.
What good is it? Why
Joseph,
not help people
died.
Keep their head? I understand
100,000 people died, Joe, and all you did was try to help your friend, the president. That's what you did. Every single morning on this show. Every single morning on this show. You abused and abused your position, Joe.
That's totally unfair.
You abused and abused your position.
I'm trying to help investors keep their cool, keep their heads. And as it turned out, that's what they should have done. That's what they should have done. They should have kept their heads. If they had listened to you, Andrew, we're supposed to be at about 8,000.
Okay, so I think that's about enough of that. But I want to bring that up just in relation to this. Who is it at the on the Trump administration, or I forget the news today, but admitting we tried. No, it wasn't Kudlow. Kudlow wouldn't admit something like this. It was some bureaucrat that said, we reopened too quickly to have a V-shaped recovery.
It was a Fed chair in Boston.
We'd love to have had one. Like the other countries that actually shut things down and took care of this and got this shit under control. But we don't have that because we reopened too fast.
I mean, can we talk about the concept of a V-shaped recovery in the first place? Like, what does that mean? Things get worse and then they get better again? It just seems like a really good way to spin it when things are getting worse. Like, no, this is only the first part of the V. The second part is coming.
Yeah, we're trying to address this in the most razor thin way possible, which is just to prop up the stock market and your 401k and just make the appearance that everything is good while people suffer daily and are going hungry.
I remember in 2011 in the studio ragging on Andrew Ross Sorkin's reaction to Occupy Wall Street with Sam. So I mean, just to hear that from him, I mean, a decade later still, but a decade later nonetheless, I mean, people are realizing due to various different things that have been occurring what's going on. It's like you mentioned, like he's not Andrew Ross Sorkin isn't DSA, but this guy clearly has perhaps opened up to some things that are going on and how screwed up it all is.
Well, it's like the idea that you can't look beyond the media, and he's probably right from in terms of what the CNBC audience wants. Like, hey, how can I make money this moment, right? Like, and probably the idea was to keep riding and not worry about all the deaths and what kind of long-term damage and depression that could sink us into.
But when they talk about the 401ks, they do have a bit of a point there, right? Because sure, most of the people making money off of the stock market are the 1%, and we don't care about them. But normal people's retirement savings are tied up in this insane system and being held hostage, so they can then turn around and say, oh, well, we're trying to sacrifice lives for the system, but we're doing it for your own good, people.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so horrible that like watching the little tickers on CNBC is what people do to plan their retirements.
Well, defined benefit pensions used to be a thing, and now they are not a thing, to the point where Sean actually had to explain it to me when he had one, what exactly it was and what it did.
The interesting thing about 401ks that I've been noticing recently is just how it's used to sort of separate people in terms of, like, for example, yesterday there was that story about Wall Street was partying it up over Joe Biden picking Kamala Harris for his VP. And I saw, people on the left criticizing it, obviously. Oh, wonderful. They got someone they like. And you saw Democrats and liberals defending it, going, I'm glad Wall Street is happy because my 401k means it's going to do good. It's like I really do think it's a tool to really separate certain people who should be on the same side, but are slightly different classes, in terms of Wall Street, at least.
And nobody has really had to retire yet on a 401k. That's the other insane thing about this. It's a relatively new innovation from the neoliberal era, designed to take shift the benefit, shift the burden from the bosses to the workers and other external factors for having a safe retirement. And I don't know, I don't really trust it. I've only ever had a 401k for like a year. I still have like $800 somewhere in a fund from that. It's just this exotic creature that comes in and out of my life, mostly out. But I feel like I do better just hiding some money under a mattress at this point.
Well, that's the thing, right? Like, you have a generation of people, or two generations, if you include Gen X to this point, who for the most part have had success with the 401k. Like, their money has grown, but with the millennials and then Gen Z, if they even have a 401k, the majority of the time has been spent losing money in it. They have not gained anything from it. So, And
now's a good time if you have parents who have retirements and are looking at this stuff closely, to say, like, you know what, you've worked all your life for this shit. Do you really think you should be having to monitor what's going on fucking Wall Street to determine the dignity of your retirement? And guess what? None of them will say, yes, I think I should have to do that. So get in there, folks, with that message.
Also, get in there and convince them to use some of that retirement fund money on Patreons for Matt, Jamie, and Brendan. You got a Patreon? I can't remember.
No, I don't.
I mean,
okay, well, you should start one.
Communism is the ultimate retirement plan, and I think it's the one a lot of millennials and Zoomers are banking on. So to the degree that we spread communism and hasten the abolition of the value form, I'd say it's a great investment.
You heard it here first, folks. The Patreon for Antifada is a down payment on communism. Who wants to go first? Matt, you want to go?
Sure. Well, looking forward to joining all of you in the second half of the show. But for those of you who are leaving us now, you can find me at youtube.com/Matt Binder. There is a live stream, a live show tonight, 9 p.m. Eastern time on YouTube. I'll be talking with Angelo Carusone, with Media Matters. And we will be discussing the rise of QAnon in Washington. We're going to run through how basically Q is going to have a place on Capitol Hill come November, almost assuredly, with at least one race, possibly more. and really how the right wing has, and the Trump sycophants have stoked QAnon to get to where it is today, really. And we're going to go through all that. It'll be a great show. YouTube.com/Matt Binder. Also Patreon.com/Matt Binder. And at Matt Binder on all social media channels if you want to follow me on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, or wherever.
I'll go first. I'll go second, I guess. On Tuesday night, Dr. Drew Mikhael joined David Griscom, Leisha Brooks, and I to discuss the Beirut explosion and the rage. Basically, if last fall's WhatsApp protests were people coming across sectarian lines for a jubilant coming together against the elite, this blast has meant a sort of anger and rage across sectarian lines at the elite. So we got Drew's take on the explosion and the failure of the ruling elite there. And as far as Literary Hangover goes, I will stream this weekend. I promise you folks. So twitch.tv/Literary Hangover. We will be doing a stream this weekend.
Heck yeah. I listened to some of that interview because I really want to learn more about what's going on in Lebanon and found it very informative. I really like the slogan, all of them means all of them. It seems like it has some real revolutionary, even anti-state potential.
It's pretty nuts over there right now. Like the day after, there was like flyers going around about like prepare the nooses and stuff like that. So they were storing thousands of pounds of ammonium nitrate in a port next to the grain silo, and they're already having problems with like we are, but during coronavirus and keeping everybody fed and stuff, and awful stuff. So yeah, check that interview out.
I can't wait for Kowalski to call in and explain to us the explosive properties of grain.
Speaking of which, call lines will be open today. Matt Binder and our tech lord Kyle put in tireless work to make it happen. So call it.
Heck yeah. Thanks, guys. So I guess I'll do mine now. This week on the Antifada, we had on the elusive Virgil Texas of Chapo Trap House to talk about all of these open letters that older leftists are writing to younger leftists about how they need to vote for, work for, support, get married to. A little unclear, but it's about Joe Biden. We talk about that. We talk about the COVID crisis, and it's great, folks. You're going to love it.
There you go. All right, folks. Also, join the MajorityReport.com to become a member of this program. Keep us going.
This show.
This show, the other one, the one you're actually here for. We will see you on the fun half.
All right, folks. 646-257-3920. See you in the fun half.
Are you ready?
Who sent us this?
Alpha males are back. Boy is back. And the alpha males are back.
Just as delicious as you could imagine.
The alpha males are back. Boy is back. And the alpha males are back.
Just want to degrade the white man.
Alpha males are back.
I take all of it in my throat.
Alpha males are back.
Almost says what?
The alpha males are back.
You are a madman.
And the alpha males are back.
I am a total cunt.
Can we bring back DJ Danergy's song, please?
Yeah, or a couple of them. Just put them in rotation.
DJ Danergy.
Well, the problem with those is they're like 45 seconds long, so I don't know if they're enough of a break for people.
That's fucking nonsense.
Hey, folks, reminder. I do not have Parkinson's.
And the alpha males are
psych. Fuck them. Almost says what? What? Almost says what?
A hell of a lot of bank. A hell of a lot of bank. A hell of a lot of bank. Hell of a lot of bank. A hell of a lot of bank.
Have you tried doing an impression on a college campus?
I think that there's no reason why reasonable people across the divide can't all agree with this. Psych.
And the alpha males are back. And the Africans are black African. And the alpha males are back. And the Africans are black.
When you see Donald Trump out there, doesn't a little part of you think that America deserves to be taken over by jihadists? Keep it at 100. Can't knock the hustle. Come on, fuck 'em. Things I do for the bigger game plan. By the way, it's my birthday. Happy birthday to me, Jew boy. I have a thought experiment for you.
And the alpha males are back. Africans are black. Alpha males are back. Africans are black.
Come on. Come on. Someone needs to pay the price for blasphemy around here.
I am a total pussy.
Welcome to the fun half with me,
What's
Matt
up,
Binder.
everyone? Yeah.
Jamie's back.
The
What do you want to do?
quartet, folks.
Yeah, the
Back
quartet.
at it again.
The quartet, where you see three of us.
Right. Yo, Brendan, do you not have a camera, or you just don't want to use it?
Yeah, I'm talking on a tin cup and a piece of string.
Yep.
It's very advanced. No, I have a camera. I just don't.
Yeah, keep them
Turn
on
that bad
more.
boy on. Turn that bad boy on. Let's see you.
No.
All right.
That's not in my contract. I need to renegotiate if I'm going to be on camera.
Exactly. Yeah, the union will get pissed.
Yeah.
Ooh, I didn't know you could do that. See, Michael and I, we provided that duty for no extra cost. Maybe a mistake on our end back in the day. Yeah.
Union power in media has grown, if ever so slightly.
That's true. That's true. Sam took advantage of us back in 2013. Oh, you producers, host. Oh, okay. Do we get something extra? No.
Michael never seemed to mind being on camera. It was what a guy.
Yeah.
Happy birthday, Michael.
Yes, happy birthday. Oh man. It was nice to see. I got that latest issue of the Jacobin.
I need to get that.
Yeah, and the back cover with it's just his name and birth and year of death. But I mean, it's very nice to see, and it's in memory of our friend in common. It's very nice. Pick it up for sure if you can. It hit hard when I saw it because I feel like with everything going on, it's sort of like things like that still don't feel real. Like we're all just living in some sort of fantasy nightmare right now because we don't do the things we normally do. We don't see the people we normally see. We're just home all the time. Yeah. But at the same time, it was very nice. Very nice.
Yeah, for sure. So should we do one of these clips or take a call?
Let's take a call because I want to make sure the system is working and there's no issues there. And then we can just get to all the clips and then leave the callers for later again if we want.
All right.
All right. You were calling from a 308 area code. What's your name? Where are you calling from? Hello, Kowalski. And does everyone on Zoom hear?
No, I don't hear that, unfortunately.
Ooh.
Oh, no.
Uh-oh.
Did you hear it, Jamie?
No.
Okay.
What happened?
Hi, what happened?
That's not
Nice.
good.
That was good.
I've been doing that. I watched
I think I know what's going on. 1 second.
Which Christopher Guest movie is that from? Yeah, I watched that when Willard died, and God, that
caller, can I hear you one more time? I'm sorry. You guys hear that?
No.
No.
You still don't. Well, then we have a problem. Okay. Sorry, buddy. I got to let you go and figure out. I'll try to figure out on my end what's going on. Well,
yeah, let's do a clip.
Work that out. Yep. Okay.
So, which shall we start with?
Take your dealer's pick, Jamie. You go.
For me? All right. Let's check in with our friend Tucker Carlson, shall we? So yesterday we played a clip where Tucker Carlson mispronounced Kamala Harris's name, got himself chewed out by some liberal elite over it, and we speculated perhaps he was trying to bait the liberals into an argument about name pronunciation so he could then play the victim, rail against the pronunciation Nazis of the SJW left or, center right, as the case may be, and drag the argument onto his preferred terrain, which is the culture war, because he has nothing else to offer working class people. So now, just like clockwork, he then last night busted out with this segment.
So if you watched last night's show, you may recall that during the opening segment, we apparently, unknowingly, mispronounced Kamala Harris's name. It is pronounced comma, not semicolon, comma, like the punctuation mark, a la Harris. Fine. It was a mistake. But it was treated as an act of bigotry, a grave offense against the honor of a sitting U.S. senator. CNN was outraged. All the things going on in the world today, they wanted you to know that someone out there had mispronounced Kamala Harris's name.
I want you to listen to how Tucker Carlson, the best he could do was to somehow mangle her name. Listen.
Just tell Kamala Harris what to say, and she will say it. That is the whole point of Kamala Harris.
I call him Schmucker Carlson, but it's an ethnic term, so he might not understand it.
But then at the end, it's laughable because he's like, or whatever. So it's like, no, it's not whatever. It is about you having to finally face what you have done to this country, to black people, to black women. There's nothing or whatever about this moment.
I actually try not to play that tape like that very often because it's not edifying, and those people are so personally unhappy they're already suffering. But this was just too amusing, so we had to. By the way, all of CNN turned out last night to watch the show. One of them, who's paid by CNN to watch this, alleged a conspiracy, tweeted that we claim this was unintentional, but our show often does mispronounce the names of people we're critical of. It's the sort of thing on his show. It seems pretty intentional! Exclamation point. Then a senior political analyst at CNN even claimed the pronunciation was an attempt to play the victim in the story because Kamala Harris, quote, didn't appear on the scene yesterday, whatever that means. So, but the bottom line is, look, any criticism of Kamala Harris is immoral. Anyone who so much as mispronounces her name is a racist.
Yeah.
I would just say, like, in the things that make me think Tucker Carlson is racist, it's not the pronunciation of Kamala Harris's name.
No, but he would love for you to think that that's the only reason people think he's racist.
Look, he loves having this conversation. There's a reason he's doing this a second day. And it's because actually it's not that bad of a play for them, because you can say, hey, I'm just trying to interrogate the senator. And what's CNN doing? Saying, you need to respect. Well, you know what? Senators in this country are not worth respect. There's maybe one. I think we know who that is. But look at how exactly it's Tim Kaine in the membrane. But like the ruling class of this country is despicable, I think, and evidenced by this pandemic. So you know what? Like, I don't care about, like, anytime Tucker can make the conversation about, like, look at these people trying to make you respect governor. Like, actually, one of the nice things about this country is we shouldn't have to do that. You know, the whole overthrowing the king, like, government of our peers. And of course, that's not what we have. But like, I don't know. Anyway, somebody else can go. 'Cause it's
yeah. That's all true. Obviously, his strategy here is disingenuous because he's like, oh, they're distracting from talking about the real stuff and the policies because of this name kerfuffle. But like, he doesn't want to talk about the real policies either. No. He would much rather make it this culture war thing about her name. But guess what? It takes two to tango, folks. The Republicans aren't the only ones who want to make this into a culture war to distract you from the fact that they are offering nothing to the vast majority of people in this country, right? They're giving you nothing. They're much more comfortable talking about how to pronounce the senator's name on both sides of the aisle than what policies she might pursue as vice president and their relationship to your life.
Yeah, this is the field and the game and the rules in which both parties can agree to play on.
100%.
Right,
that's why it's on
and
CNN. That's what CNN's made for, baby. This sort of superfluous bullshit.
Right, and this is what the discourse will be now for the next couple of weeks: how to pronounce Kamala Harris's name. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
When Sam said yesterday that this is going to be the last day that we mention Kamala Harris in like some meaningful way, I was like, I hope you're right, but I really just do not believe you right now.
I hope so. Yeah.
Well,
right.
One clip of many. Hope I haven't bummed you all out too much at the top of the fun half.
No. I just love that Tucker pretends maybe he doesn't want to still be playing that clip. Like, I don't like playing stuff like this. Like, I bet that's what he does all the time he's not on air. Is just watch shit like that.
Yeah, that's like if I got on the mic and I was like, oh my God, I hate talking about communism, you guys. Stop making me do it.
Exactly.
I hate it. It's so not my favorite thing to talk about.
Right. Well, maybe if we talk about it enough, everyone will just get sick of it. At least we'll play a small part, and everyone getting sick of it, and we could finally move on from the how to pronounce Kamala Harris's name. I guess I'm gonna predict the day after the general election in November. That's probably when when everyone will be done with it.
Yeah.
Comrade Kamala. That's how you remember, folks. Just keep that in mind.
All right. Let's try the phones again. I think I figured this out.
Oh yeah.
Here. Well, we'll find out now, won't we? 585. What's your name? Where are you calling from? Hello. Oh well, I guess I didn't. Hello. I heard someone. Maybe it was that caller.
Try another caller.
Yeah, let me try one more. 707. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Hey.
1 second here.
Did you guys hear that?
Yep.
Yes, we do.
I fixed it.
Can you hear me?
I hear you. Yes, I do. What's your name? And everyone can too. What's your
The
name? Where
era
you
of the
calling from?
pajama boy is over.
This is Ethan calling from Northern California.
All right, awesome. Just stand back a little bit from your phone. It's a little bit hot and it's like distorting a little bit.
How's that? Is that better?
Yes, much better.
Perfect. Thanks a lot. First time caller, just first of all, I want to say happy birthday to Michael. It was difficult at first to watch some of the Throwback Thursdays, but today was definitely a really good one to watch. Just he's going to be missed. I know probably you guys more, but he definitely helped along with the crew there, kind of push me even more or less than I was before. So just wanted to say thank you to all you guys for what you do. And then just wanted to bring up, kind of not stepping on your toes, Matt, with your QAnon podcast you're going to be doing, but how do you guys see us being able to kind of push back against just the craziness that you're seeing all over social media, just crazy conspiracy theories that are easily disproven? Like the newest one now is like pedophiles trying to get recognized status and just the hashtag save the children, just complete nonsense that's taking over.
Right.
But with any actual research, is like, this is nonsense. Like, why is this stuff trending, and how do you push back, or do you just kind of shut off and say, you know, these people are lost causes?
So the first thing I would just say, don't focus on the people who are victimized from it. Focus on the sort of material impetus behind it. So to name an example, this Beirut explosion, right? A day after that happened, you saw this footage of what looked like a missile coming down and striking where it was, and people were saying it was Israel. Now, you look at the footage of it, and they didn't even motion blur the missile, so they just took a stock footage of a missile and made it go very fast across the thing. A bad fake, right? But the reason it was faked is because, frankly, the ruling elite in Lebanon would love people to blame Israel for certain things like this. Likewise with the pedophile stuff. There is a protected pedophile problem in this country, right? Jeffrey Epstein was told, Acosta was told by somebody, we don't know who, apparently the reporters, we can't get to the bottom of who told Acosta to stand down because Epstein's related to intelligence. But guess what? He was able to go on traffic some more teenage girls because of that reason. So and what I would suggest about that stuff is anytime that blackmail I would say this is one of the reasons why homosexuality was criminalized for so long, is because it was a useful blackmail asset. And I think that's the same thing you have with this pedophilia stuff now. So the general answer is there are powerful people that want to add noise to the signal. And so we can't see the signal because we have all this information technology now that we can access this stuff, that you need to fill it with bullshit. And I mean, people always believe bullshit, right? The people used to believe in fairies.
Right.
Now it's just digital bullshit.
Are you saying you don't believe in fairies, Matt?
I don't. No, I'm anti-fairy.
Wow.
So you're specifically, it's not that you don't believe in them specifically, it's that you are all full-blown anti-fairy. Like
I'm anti-fairy. I'm a fairy skeptic.
He's
I have a
Antifa.
podcast. Debunk fairy debunkers.
That's the real Antifa.
Getting back to the caller's question here, though, but there are people specifically in QAnon who are just a lost cause. A lot of them are. I mean, I've discussed this actually, where this isn't even like, there are groups out there from like people who got out of white supremacist organizations who try to save young people who fall into those movements, and those are completely legit, and that could happen. And they have a better chance of doing that than anyone, I think, has a chance of getting QAnon people out of their movement. I mean, the QAnon people are so far in and lost in deep that really the best thing we can do right now is just hope no one else falls into it. And no, go ahead.
I would continue. I'm sorry. Well, I was gonna say, and that's the scary thing, is it's, I've cut those people out long time. Like, there's nothing you can do, but you're seeing it. Like, I'm seeing it in like friends and acquaintances, coworkers, biting into little pieces of it, and that's what draws them in, and then they go down, quote unquote, the rabbit hole and get full indoctrinated. So I'm trying to push back and like, do you have sources? Do you have like something that we can like go over? Like, human trafficking and pedophilia, those are problems.
No.
But
See,
you pay attention on something that isn't.
One of the best things I've seen to convince those I don't know what to call them, people who aren't in so deep, they're just lightly looking into it, they just recently found out about it, they're still on the brink of being convinced that it's all bullshit. Literally, just like you got to get enough people joking and mocking it. Like, literally, like, it's got to be so ridiculous. Like, you have to make them think that the broad consensus, even among their own friends, is that this is ridiculous.
Exactly.
Like, we should be laughing at this. Like, convincing them that, like, no, this is not real. Let me show you this fact and that fact and that. It's not going to work. It doesn't matter. It's just everyone wants to hear their own shit.
It is not about evidence. It's about the social surroundings, right?
Yes.
That's 100% what it is.
And I think that everyone has time right now. Being on lockdown is like that. They're going down these YouTube click holes. Like, I saw somebody post a comment on something where I pushed back on, like, well, have you seen this documentary? I open it up. I forget. I'm not even give it the time of day with the name of it, but I'm like, okay, maybe I need to be open-minded to see maybe there's something I'm missing. Within the first 2 minutes, they're saying the wildfires that ravaged my neighborhood, friends of mine losing their houses, was somehow a hoax. Vaccines, chemtrails, reptilian people. I'm like,
Are you talking about that? I forgot the exact name.
Well, that's true.
In the fall of the cabal or something like that.
All right, that's a different one. Okay, no, but literally,
there's multiple.
I mean, you're right about the lockdown, because I've looked into this extensively, and QAnon, while it was already a thing taking off, it really has seen a boom during the lockdown, and that's one of the. This wasn't purposely done. I want to give them credit, but one of the things that makes QAnon so much more dangerous than other conspiracies, and I think I explained it like this the very first time I came on the show to discuss it with Sam in 2017, is that QAnon is a conspiracy theory incubator. It's not like the other conspiracy theories out there. It's not like Pizzagate alone. It's not like the Epstein stuff alone. It's an incubator for all these conspiracies, so they all feed off of each other. So even if you try to knock down one, there's others to hold it up. If you look at the vast amount of anti-vaxxers who just recently got into QAnon around March and April of this year, it's like a whole separate movement that was gigantic and huge and dangerous in its own right, basically combined with QAnon to form something even more dangerous. And you're going to see it with more of these separate conspiracy theory movements down the line. And that's really what makes QAnon so, honestly, horrific. I mean, you have conspiracy theorists who they're not even on the same page. percentage of QAnon people believe Robert Kennedy Jr. JFK is still alive or whatever, and then another percentage thinks that's bullshit. But it doesn't matter because they all come together for the prime reason that, hell, this is all stuff that's going to help Trump, and we believe in the main thing, that all these different forces are coming together to stop Trump, but he's going to take them all down.
The only thing I would recommend
really
is
confident for that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think you need to not engage in them about the QAnon or anything related to QAnon stuff. If you have somebody that's into that stuff, the best thing you can do is send them news articles about other stuff. Like talk to them about Vincent Bevin's Jakarta method and like the conspiracy to kill communists. Like that, engage with them about real conspiracies. Don't say like, here's the real thing, and just say like, oh, I see you're into conspiracies. Here's some other stuff. And maybe you can try to like, put some good nutrition into their, awful shit diet. But engaging them frontally, people's egos are too big to ever like actually like challenge their own convictions on certain things.
Yeah. You can't challenge a delusion outright. You have to go at it tangentially. And that's something that therapists put into practice. I mean, it's really hard, but sometimes I think if you take a look at conspiracies from a leftist perspective, that might help change people's tune who are, maybe not rich and maybe not too far gone yet. Like we've dealt with some of these on the Antifada and our side project Prolet Cult. They do a real good job on TrueAnon, Brace and Liz, and they're funny. Right. So I don't know. The meme wars, if someone's younger, I feel like just coming across various memes on the internet can change their minds about what they believe in, which is crazy to think about. But like one guy we had on talked to somebody who like used to identify as an eco-fascist and like a few years later is a left communist or an anarchist based on just traveling around the internet. The internet is so weird, guys.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of QAnon, though, one interesting thing is the demographic is sort of changing a little bit now in terms of the age demographic, thanks to the lockdown and the diversity of the age groups that are skeptical of the coronavirus. As crazy it is to say that. But there's a reason why QAnon took off with baby boomers leading the charge in the beginning. And that's because the idea that Donald Trump is trying to take down a satanic child trafficking ring spearheaded by the liberal elite in Hollywood and the Democratic Party sounds insane to most people who aren't so susceptible to this sort of fake news cockamamie bullshit. So, I mean, again, it's changing now a bit, but and it's sort of, the interesting thing about mocking it is a lot of the people who would spread this QAnon stuff on 4chan when it started would do it like sort of laughing about it as well. And then the boomers would come and not sort of get the 4chan, way they talk there. And then they would take that stuff and start sharing it as if it was true to the word and not like as if it's a big joke like it was to a lot of those channels.
Oy.
So
can boomers even get on 4chan? Like I can't even figure out how to look at 4chan.
Right. I mean, that's sort of, again, why this stuff is, you have people accessing platforms they don't quite understand. Too. Yeah, well, it's not on. QAnon's been kicked off 4chan for a while. This is really early on, but I mean that's part of the reason why this stuff sort of takes off. You have people who don't understand. This is a perfect example. Let me have the caller hop off, and I have a story I want to bring up.
No problem. Thanks, guys.
Brendan, can you let me cue it up, and then let's do that audio about Joe Biden and Antifa.com.
Oh boy.
Yeah. So yesterday at a press conference, Donald Trump was asked a question by a reporter, and I use that word half-heartedly, I guess, with the far right-wing, I should add, cable news network OANN. And she had a very important question to ask Donald Trump at this press conference, with a pandemic going on and mass unemployment and mass evictions on the horizon. This is what she asks at this press conference to the President of the United States.
I'd like to highlight a kind of odd situation. In the last hour or so, if you Googled Antifa.com, it would take you straight to Joe Biden's website, his official campaign website. Odd situation. We don't know who's behind that. But it raises an interesting leadership question. Should Joe Biden, the Democrat Party, Kamala Harris, should they publicly denounce the Antifa as a domestic terrorist organization?
They should. I think they're afraid to. It's, in my book, it's virtually a part of their campaign, Antifa.
We could stop it
like,
there.
Gee, I don't know.
Because we've discussed, over and over again, Trump and him claiming that the anti-fascists are the actual fascists and they're the terrorist organization. Good people on both sides started even there back in 2017. But let's focus on the question that was being asked at this press conference. So yesterday, a bunch of conservatives noticed, and this is probably where she saw it, a bunch of conservatives online noticed that the domain name, Antifa.com, forwarded to the website for Joe Biden's presidential campaign. Oh my God, a scandal. Can you believe that? Does this mean that the Democrats or Joe Biden purchased Antifa.com to have it do that? Or did Antifa, obviously Antifa.com must be the official homepage for Antifa. Did they explicitly come out and endorse Joe Biden for president? And you literally go on Twitter, on Facebook. This was everywhere. I wrote an article debunking it, and the traffic to it was massive coming from Google because just how many people were searching this connection. And this is a perfect example of people not understanding technology and then assuming whatever they want to believe based on the ideas they already hold, and then spreading their false information, their misinfo. Anyone who owns a domain can redirect their domain name to any web page. You don't need permission or a connection to anyone at that other website to do so. For example, we can, if we want, redirect majority.fm to the David Pakman show. We would never do that, but we could. And the idea that there would be some sort of connection just based on that is ridiculous. So I looked into the Antifa.com domain, and quite frankly, we don't know who's behind it. Can a Biden supporter own Antifa.com? Sure. Can a Trump supporter own Antifa.com and have done this redirect to create this very controversy we saw? So this could be the discourse for the next 24 hours, that Antifa and Joe Biden are in cahoots together to try to stop Donald Trump. Anyone could redirect this domain. The domain name has who is privacy, which means we can't see who is the registrant for this domain name. What I have been able to find out is that it was formerly an Antifa, an actual anti-fascist news website back in the late 90s, early 2000s. At some point, the domain was not renewed and dropped. It was registered again in 2002. And since 2002, up until around July of this year, there was a for sale page on the Antifa.com website. Last I checked, it was on sale for $37,000. I don't know if any anti-fascists have $37,000 lying around. And when I say anti-fascists, in this case, I'm
Joe Biden.
People, George Soros notwithstanding.
Right. I'm referring to the people.
We're going to pick that up. See that website? We got a good deal on it. I love that website. It's my favorite website. I learned a lot from there. Antifa, it's a defensive posture.
Charlottesville was one of the reasons he cited running for president, and specifically stating those brave anti-fascists who stood up to amazing, right? But
keep our name out of your mouth.
Right. But then at the end of May, suddenly a website popped up on this on Antifa.com mentioning the Black Lives Matter protests that erupted after the murder of George Floyd. And on the website was a basic landing page telling people to come join Antifa. And there will be news coming up on how to join the Antifa ranks.
Oh, boy.
Now, I don't know about you, but that doesn't sound like it's owned by anyone who actually considers themselves anti-fascist. Because if you don't partake in the fake news surrounding Antifa, you'll know that there is no membership to Antifa because there's no actual Antifa group. Antifa is literally anyone who wants to consider themselves anti-fascist. Yes, it's a broad movement that's been around since the Second World War. But again, there's no membership. There's no official way to join. You could just declare yourself Antifa if you'd like. There's no one to stop you.
If you want to join Antifa, go to Joe 30330.
Right.
There are groups of people that do anti-fascist organizing, and a lot of it has to happen underground because some of it is totally legal. and some of it might be a little less legal. And these are groups that are really being investigated by the FBI because they're trying to crack down on any kind of subversive political activity. But they're typically a lot tougher to penetrate. Right? They don't just have like a sign up form on a website
they're
for
like,
the reason that the feds are constantly trying to infiltrate and spy on them.
Yeah, I heard somebody.
There's specific organization too. Like it's not like, they're just going around saying, hey, come join Antifa. No, they're specific, the local, whatever anti-fascist group. That's different from, there is no national or global Antifa group. There's no parent organization called Antifa that runs the smaller local Antifa franchises. Like it's just, that just doesn't exist.
I mean, there are official groups in Europe. I just found out. It's much less diffuse there, perhaps because of less government repression, although that's not really something I want to bet on at this point in time, what with everything that's going on in Europe.
I've heard some people go to sort of meetings for Antifa groups in New York here and said, like, there's some people I guess you can probably maybe meet there, but it also feels like half the people might be cops.
Yeah. I mean, you got to assume that somebody's listening whenever you communicate electronically. In person is much safer, but I mean, it happens. I've seen it happen. It's nuts. We just found out a little while ago about some people who had infiltrated the New York City ultra-left during Occupy because they were testifying in a J20 trial against the protesters who were hit with some very severe charges.
All that money sloshing around. I mean, it's doable financially, so why wouldn't they do it?
Yeah. Oh, but back to Joe Biden. Does Trump actually think this is going to work? Associating, just trying to paint Antifa as this like paramilitary wing of the Democratic Party, when Joe Biden just went on the record the other day saying that he wanted to prosecute anarchists. Do we have that quote?
Right, he did say that.
And but Kamala Harris is literally a cop. She has a very long record of supporting punitive law and order policies, like sending parents to jail for truancy, fighting against early release or clemency programs, fighting for the ability to arrest minors and turn them over to ICE. Like, does anyone actually believe that these people support anti-fascist organizing?
Well, this is the play here because they're the right-leaning pollster Rasmussen had a poll that found that the majority of Americans have a negative opinion of Antifa after the protests. I guess you could separate. I guess the public has separated Antifa from the broader Black Lives Matter movement, which actually has majority positive views from most Americans. And I bet the play is here. I really am pushing for everyone to go on Twitter or Facebook and just type in Joe Biden and Antifa.com together. And you will see the conservative reaction to this. And no doubt the Trump campaign, along with OANN, saw this and are going to play off of this. Conservatives are acting like this is some huge scandal. They were acting, they were doing like selfie videos of them being shocked, of them actually going, they're like one of those like YouTube reaction videos of them typing in Antifa.com and the website popping up being Joe Biden's campaign page. And their reaction is just like, oh my God, I can't believe it. Yeah, they're not going to say anything about this. Oh, let me do it again so you can see it again. So literally, they are up in arms about this as if this should end. Like Joe Biden needs to drop out apparently because someone decided to literally log into their domain name registrants administration panel and type in joebiden.com in the redirect input. Literally, that's all you have to do to redirect your domain to any website of your choosing. I mean, it's incredible to see. It's what happens when people who don't understand what they're talking about just take it and run with it anyway, just so it fits into their already pre-existing ideological beliefs.
Yeah, well, he's playing to the base on this one. I don't know how many swing voters are going to be convinced by the fact that Antifa.com redirects the Joe Biden website. That said, we ourselves have a redirect from cucknation.org, or I guess it goes to TMBS now. And, you know, as it turns out, we are, in fact, a cuck nationalist organization. So, you know, sometimes it's true.
I just found I dried some, mixed cement and milkshakes.com goes to Joe Biden also. So.
Wow, someone's really, really keeping busy these days.
All right.
Thanks for explaining that, hacker Matt.
Oh, no problem. You know, I just, you know, could clip that for YouTube and maybe you guys will get some good SEO off of that, you know?
Hell yeah.
Or demonetized.
You never know.
I'm spreading the truth. I'm spreading the truth. No misinformation.
Yeah, well, that's how you get demonetized. Trust us.
We were demonetized for telling the truth.
Demonetized for truth.
Let's go. That is, of course, a reference to the Google guy who left Google, right?
Yeah.
Right. Oh, by the way, one thing we should now talk about on Majority Report that just hit me when you were discussing, when you were talking with the caller, Matt, is we need to now dedicate the next 3 weeks to how do you pronounce Jeff Epstein's last name? Because you said Epstein, and I say Epstein.
Oh, you know, I'm confused because the Weinsteins are the Steins. So I've started going Stein often.
Because I think it's Epstein. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah.
Right.
I think you're right.
I'm frankly a little offended that you would mispronounce his name in such an anti-Semitic way.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
He
Show
is
some respect.
He is a state-protected pedophile. Put some respect on his name.
Exactly.
Let me read some IMs, actually. One of the things we haven't gotten to yet. I'm going to skip the bad ones. I've learned my lesson. See, on my show, I have the time to get to all of them. I realized that on this show, there's way too many now.
That's egalitarian here.
It's crazy here.
You got to read the cuck ones, though. Those are the good ones.
All right.
They just control F cuck.
Here's a good one to kick it all off. Hi, old Matt. Jamie had mentioned she does not care for David Pakman. Can she explain why?
Oh my God.
That's the last Packwood one. First and last Packwood one I'll read of this episode. I just had to get to it.
I guess I could answer this.
You don't have to.
He's got some bad takes on imperialism in Latin America and seems to be somewhat okay with the coups that have occurred in Venezuela and Bolivia and elsewhere. And I take that shit seriously. And I don't play with that kind of thing. So that's where the nature of my aggravation comes from.
Did you guys, Pakman, by the way, is really taking the lead in the rush to the 1 million followers between him and Sam. What's going on there, guys? We got to step
It's over is what's going on.
I have no idea. You know,
Sam didn't plug MR on MSNBC. He just doesn't care about using the advantage.
Yeah, of course he talked about Air America, though.
Oh my God.
Was Majority Report literally not? I mean, I watched it, but was the Majority Report literally not mentioned? Wow.
I don't remember.
I don't believe so. Maybe once at the top.
Wow.
I don't know. You know, it's like he doesn't even want to win.
Yeah.
Wow.
Damn. Well, I mean, maybe if some time was, you know what I should do? Maybe I could do it. Put together a tracker that side by side shows how far the two are. And then you guys could once people see that it's within reach. I mean, it's not out of contention.
It's pretty close to out of contention.
It's like what, 13,000 subscribers? 13. That's not out.
Maybe 17 now.
For me, you know, but still, you guys have 900 something thousand subscribers. It's within reach, I think. Come on, guys, subscribe to the Majority Report.
Yeah, but if we don't try, then it doesn't hurt when we lose. Exactly.
Well,
so that's why I'm arm's length with this whole thing.
I see. Well, you know, if you're not going to subscribe to the Majority Report, then youtube.com/Matt Binder. You should subscribe there at least.
Patreon.com/the Antifada. Fight imperialism. Subscribe to the Antifada.
Oh, that was Bear at home too, by the way. I forgot to read. Ask McGee says, Matt B, how much ADHD do you have? And are you sure you don't want to do drugs? Yes, I realize my caffeine intake and energy drink consumption no doubt fuels a lot of what you see. I've realized that at times it's a bit over the top, and I'm trying to curtail it. But at the same time, I sort of think that's my thing. So
never apologize for who you are.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's not who I am. Sometimes it's legit,
Hyper,
completely
positive snowflake.
Right. But yeah, no, I saw someone say Matt Binder bringing the YouTube influencer energy to the political scene, and I think that is the perfect. I got to bring those YouTube kids into the political realm. That's how the majority report's gonna win. The people who watch like Shane Dawson and those guys are gonna be, oh wow, this guy's just as hyper as them. I'm gonna watch, and then they'll be indoctrinated into becoming leftists. Come on, guys, that's the play here.
Got to use all the tools in our toolbox, you know. Maybe Matt Binder will help get the YouTube kids on board. I will help get the sad goth girls with lots of cats who maybe used to be like Tumblr SJWs and now they're leftists. And who else? I mean,
thinking about it though, I perhaps shouldn't use the exact phrasing. I'm going to lure in the YouTube kids.
And Matt Leck will get all of the literature-loving stoners.
Yeah. We're really a diverse quartet here.
I'm happy with that.
Brendan will get the...
gamers. I got the gamers.
The Wookiees.
I could get the scene kids, yeah.
Fans of scene kids. I thought you were like a Beatles guy.
Scene is a general term.
No, it's not. Scene is very specific to me.
To your scene, yeah, I get it.
Scene reminds me of like early 2000s pop emo on
like
MySpace.
The emo core, screamo stuff.
Yeah, terrible. With
some of the music was good, like the earlier bands, like Texas Is the Reason. That's a great band. But it definitely went off. The early Saves the Day is great too. But that's
not what I'm talking about.
Right.
This was its own kind of monster. I was already too old for it when it happened. It was extremely postmodern. Let's move on.
Yeah, we could discuss. Maybe we should do a whole episode just on this on our own shows, Jamie.
Perhaps we should.
A Square, especially today, but every day. We miss Michael. Absolutely, A Square. Brandon, Jamie, Matt, and Sam. Thanks for keeping his intentions and his irreverence alive.
Aww.
Yeah, I mean, I was actually thinking about. I feel like every couple of days a new Michael memory that's stored in my brain just pops into my head. And with the birthday on my mind, with his birthday today, I actually just recalled how funny story how when Ezra, my firstborn, who's now 5, when he was born, my dad he was born minutes before the show. I wasn't at the show. I was there at the hospital. And my dad had IM'd into the show to let everyone know. And Sam and Michael congratulated me, and oh boy, get a little emotional here. And funny, let me get to the funny part. A few hours later, still obviously we just gotten out of we're just got in the room and everything, and we're with the baby. Just a few hours, and then Michael calls me to congratulate me, and I was like, oh, that's thanks, And then he got right to the real point. He needed some tech help in getting the podcast and YouTube videos and everything up. So I proceeded to spend the next 45 minutes to, I think, an hour walking Michael through all the steps a few hours after my
congratulations
my son was born in the hospital. I'll never forget it. And I'm so happy he called me because I will be able to tell he'll be forever included in the story of the day of my son's birth because of that fun memory. So I thought I'd share that with all of you guys.
That's hilarious. That's so funny because it was like when I started, it's like, okay, I'll learn how to do this. Binder's going to go, but Michael will be around and he knows how all this stuff works. So he'll just tell me how that goes. And basically I had to learn everything immediately by myself.
Awesome.
And you know what? Freed up Michael to be such a good interviewer. So by him just never being able to process the sort of technical steps you need to get a show off the ground. It's kind of endearing, actually.
That's a very kind take on Michael's utter, just willful ignorance about technology.
It was beneath him.
It speaks to it
higher
speaks
plane.
to the truth.
Yeah.
It speaks to the truth of that phrase that, you'll laugh about it later. Like at the time, it probably was one of the most annoying things on the planet, but now I'm so
I laughed about it all the time. But yeah.
Well, you laughed to the point.
The switch button
to the point where it's like, come on.
The mute switch You know, it's
on the
sticky
mic. Oh my
on
God,
the mics.
yeah.
Getting, I think Michael finally got it like in 2019, like how to like look underneath and figure out which way to unmute himself. But it took a long time for that to start stuff out. Oh man, yeah, miss that guy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, happy birthday, Michael, once again. I know we'll be, this is not something that we'll be celebrating Michael's birthday, every year. This isn't something that, we'll remember Michael every day. And, I don't know what else to say. It's just, I'm all right. Let's go to a caller. 303, what's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hey, this is the Letter Hack calling from Colorado.
Hey, how you doing? What are you calling about to talk with us today?
I just wanted to make a comment in honor of Michael's birthday. I've released high resolution artwork that I did of him via my Twitter site, so anybody can go on Twitter and track it down.
Cool. I'll take a look.
It was a few things that I put online the day he passed, and a lot of people started DMing me about it and asking if they could buy a copy. And
are you the one who made that? Are you the one who made that? Are you the one who made my favorite piece of art? And this is, all the art's been beautiful, but my favorite is that one of him in his tracksuit holding the rose.
No, I did not.
Well, I'm sure your other. I'm sure.
The Letter Hack, you made the one with us in front of the Sopranos store. Is that right?
Oh,
that
that's another one of my favorite. That one.
Oh yeah, that was awesome.
That's another favorite of mine. That's a great one too. Yeah, you would add me.
There's so much good stuff.
Add it to me, and I will retweet it on Twitter.
We have Letter Hack stuff up here though. These few images here. I've seen this one all over the place. This yellow or red one here with Michael.
Oh right, that one. That people are using that as their avatar. That's a perfect avatar image for people to use.
Yeah, so that's one of the ones I gave up for free. So, just wanted to know what else to do. So I just thought, man, keep his image out there, keep his memory alive, and all the things that he taught us and stood for. This was, one thing that I could do to lend to the cause. So I just wanted to say it on the air so that everyone, the entire audience could be privy to it.
All right, man. Thanks a lot. I really appreciate that. I'm going to retweet your stuff.
Yeah, I'm loving these Thursdays too. You guys are killing it.
Aw, thank you.
Thanks, Matt.
Yeah, keep up the good work. Left is best.
Hell yeah. All right. Let's go another call, and I guess we can do another story and or clip. 912, what's your name? Where are you calling from? All right. Gonna have to let you go. Call back if I think I just dropped them as they're about to talk. 912, if you call back in, I'll take you because that was my bad. 818, what's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hey, Matt, this is Dave Rubin from Jamaica. How you doing?
Oh, we got to get to this. I think I know what you're trying to do here, but continue. Dave Rubin in Jamaica.
Yes, so I'm very disappointed with progressives, but around here I managed to find an actual progressive party that I like. Have you guys heard of the JPP?
Your Dave Rubin in Jamaica voice honestly sounds like a quintessential snooty French guy to be.
I didn't know that. I mean, Dave Rubin in Jamaica has such a. Tell us about the JPP, Dave Rubin in Jamaica.
Well, these are progressives I can get behind. They're a group of pastors that want to get rid of income tax. So I think that's where we need to go.
They're pastors that want to get rid of income tax?
Yeah.
Oh, that checks all my boxes.
So they want to get rid of income tax, and they want to charge prisoners for their stay at prison, like $50 a day. I think this is ideas that can get behind.
Oh, wow. I also see they want to ban strip clubs and casinos, Dave. Ruben from Jamaica. Yep. What do you think about that?
So, if you have to come back to crazy left,
yes.
types,
you got to get Marxism out of the strip clubs and casinos, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well,
now while I've been down here, nobody wants to bait me a cape, but that's not going to stop me from high-level ideas. But that's what you got to do.
Sometimes you got to make your own cake.
I wish I could do a impression of a Jamaican Sam Cedar, just so I could say I'll debate you, and see what Jamaican Dave Rubin's reaction to that would be.
Yeah, we need Dominican Sam Cedar.
Oh, where's Michael when you need him?
Here's Dominican Sam Cedar. Here.
All right, caller. Let's thank you for bringing this up, because we should play this clip in memory for Michael. We should play this clip for his birthday. We should play this clip. This really is the perfect Dave Rubin clip to drop for Michael's birthday, because not only does Michael like shitting on Dave Rubin, but I could only imagine what Michael's reaction would have been, the impression king himself, to Dave Rubin trying to do impressions.
Imagine in the 1930s, right? With 1920s, 1930s, 1940s, we get all these immigrants, right, from all over Europe. And imagine if the presidential candidates had gotten up there, and been like, oh, I see we've got a lot of new Irish citizens. I'm going to give a shillelagh and a potato to all of you. It's like, what? We would think that's either racist or ridiculous, or at best the worst pandering nonsense, It's a spicy meatball. Everybody is going to get a meatball for all of my Italian friends, It's like, what are we letting these guys get away with, It's like, like a guy's going to get up there, he's going, a schmuck like me, I'm like Johnny Mason, so all the Jews are going to get a good filter fish.
Guess what?
Wow.
Maybe... Go ahead, Jamie.
I cannot believe that guy's comedy career didn't do better.
Right.
What if instead of like turning Jews away that were fleeing Nazi Germany, we did do a really offensive Jewish impression? So here's some matzah soup. Come in. I can't do an impression, and then let them in. Guess what? We'd have forgiven the very offensive performance and been just glad that they let them in. So maybe we should focus on that, Dave.
Those impressions were so was he his Italian, by the way, is literally like Mario 64 status. Like, okay, it's me, Mario. It's like so, and again, that's something he doesn't get. Like Michael, a good impressionist, other than being really good at doing the voices themselves, hits a specific person. Like if a person who you are doing an impression of has an accent, obviously you have to do that accent. But Dave Rubin was actually doing the racist thing of just generalizing that, oh, an Irish person actually has this accent. An Italian person actually has this accent. A Jewish person must sound like a stereotypical Jew. He wasn't doing a specific person. Like it was like, that's the problem there. Like if, someone has an accent where they come from a South American country, you do that accent. If you're just saying like, oh, I'm doing an Argentinian, and you start having an accent, then no, that's racist.
I mean, it takes a good joke also to be able to pull it off, and I'm not sure what the joke was there.
Yeah.
The joke was that he was doing a racist accent. Lol. Or multiple. I mean, I do kind of enjoy, I will admit, that like extremely offensive fake Italian accent. Like, oh, that's a spicy meatball. I will never get sick of that. But you know what? I'm lying, because I just got sick of it when Dave Rubin did it.
And look, like Dave's making hay off of, performative wokeness of the Democratic Party. And that is annoying, right? Like we had, I think Bree Joy Gray pointed out, we had this entire thing about how many candidates could speak Spanish. And now I think only 3 Latinos are speaking on the convention floor. That said, like all those things are forgiven if, say, we lead towards more equality and stop exploiting labor of everybody, and particularly along racial lines, right? Like that's obviously the more important thing. But these sorts of like discourse, like things are what it's the same thing as Ben Shapiro or Tucker Carlson talking about pronunciation of Kamala, right? Like this is the terrain they like to be in all the time.
I mean, I wish that they were actually offering material shit to various segments of the working class, including immigrants.
And if they were, they could do it. If they were seriously doing that, then I wouldn't mind the offensive accents if they delivered them with.
They're not even doing what Dave Rubin claims to be that they're doing. Like, where's Micah Filter-Fish? I don't see it. Where's everybody's spicy meatball? Where's all the, what else did he say? I don't know. He's an idiot. Right. But like
his complaint is that there are campaigns that are now campaigning specifically to minorities, minority interests and things like that. Reagan was doing that in 1980. Like
everyone does that. Everyone does that.
Anytime do it right now.
Anytime the Republicans let in a new population for like refugee status, that's exactly what they will be doing with that population.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, Donald Trump himself even he doesn't even try to hide it with vocabulary, or he literally just comes out and goes, "I'm the best president for blacks. The blacks love me." Like it's like he doesn't even like. Why does he think he has to say that? Because as Trumpian as he is and all his weird issues and problems, he gets that he needs to reach out to those groups and at least grab a somewhat sizable portion if he wants any chance in hell of re-election. Yeah. So he panders.
Unfortunately, though, when it comes to immigrants, Democrats and Republicans alike, although Republicans are certainly worse, continue to terrorize them, continue to separate families, continue to fund ICE and the police departments. And it's bad, folks. So once again, Dave Rubin made his enemies look better than they deserve with his terrible attempt at a takedown.
Yeah. Also, abolish ICE for real, though.
Mm-hmm.
Like, let's see if we can bring that back. Remember that, folks? Bring that.
Mm-hmm. Not if Biden Harris has anything to say about it.
Oh no! If they become, I think we should really bring it back, because then we'll actually be talking to a Democrat. They're not.
I mean, they're not going to do it. I have zero
faith
they're ever going to support it. But at least we can point that out and say, hey, look, these Democrats are bad on ICE too. Maybe we need to get some better people in there.
Yeah. Also, it hurt Kamala 2024.
Right. Mm-hmm. There are a few people who, speaking of, I guess, performative wokeness in a sense, there seems to be a few people who want us to mention what's going on in Massachusetts with the progressive candidate, Alex Morse. Have you guys discussed this on the show yet?
Not yet. I was kind of avoiding it, but I did get in a Twitter fight with Glenn Greenwald about it last night, so maybe I'm ready.
I think we are now in a position where we need to discuss what's going on based on recently uncovered news. So for people who aren't familiar, Alex Morse is a mayor of, I believe, is it Holyoke, Massachusetts?
Mm-hmm.
And he's been a mayor since he's 21 years old. He's now 30. And he's running to primary, who's he primarying again? Rep. Neal?
Richie Neal.
Big bad corporate Democrat.
And Alex Morse is running as a progressive. He's been endorsed by Justice Democrats, Sunrise Movement, a number of different progressive organizations. He helped hit the ground for Jamal Bowman and a lot of those other progressives who've won in recent months and years have also come out and said they support Morse in his candidacy. Well, recently there was a letter released by, was it the UMass Amherst College Democrat Group?
Yes.
Organization? They released a letter basically saying that Alex Morse has been inappropriate and was engaging in inappropriate relationships with students at the college, and they were banning him from events.
Well, the thing that they said that he did was not actually sexual. I mean, I don't think it's sexual. The thing they said he did was he would attend their events, he would meet students there, and then he would slide into their DMs, not saying anything horny or creepy, but in a way that their generation understands to be, somewhat intimate, shall we say.
Well, where is he slotting into their DMs? Because also the platform tells you a lot.
On Instagram, and he matched with some of them on Tinder or Grindr or whatever.
Well,
but that was what they alleged.
Right. So this letter gets published by the school newspaper, and then obviously Politico and other news outlets start covering it, and groups that had previously endorsed Morse had stepped back, and some had unendorsed. Some had said that they weren't unendorsing, but were pausing any sort of financial help to his campaign. There were various different reactions in terms of what was going on. And people on the left who supported Morse, who weren't part of these groups, did come out. He had his defenders who come out and said that, there are no actual allegations, though. This is just a letter stating that he third-handedly tried to do these things without any actual quotes or allegations from someone who had this experience with Morse.
Well, no, he also did admit to having sexual relations with undergrads at the college where he taught.
Well,
not
again,
his students, but students.
Right. But again, there's no allegations from these students saying he did anything inappropriate or that they were taken advantage of or that they had any problem with what they had done with Alex Morse.
And per the rules, he did not have authority over these students. They weren't his students.
Yes, they weren't his students. And again, to have, whether you think that was appropriate or not, that's up to that's your opinion, really. I don't think you could argue that rises to the level of you must, step down, end your campaign, do anything like that. I don't think it even rises to the level of your campaign being, dead, even if you don't officially end it.
Yeah.
But those were the allegations. Again, allegations from third-party individuals who did not find anyone to quote in terms of having gone through this with Morse. And then...
no survivors or victims, despite that language being used by certain groups about this sort.
They had used that language, right. I forgot about that. You're right. Which, again, it demeans it if you don't actually have someone coming out claiming they are a survivor or a victim. I mean, who are you talking about? And then The Intercept had two stories come out yesterday. One found out that one of the heads, I forgot what his actual position was. If one of you want to pull it up, one of the heads of this college group had told his friends and fellow college Democrats that he looked at Rep. Neal, who Morse is primarying, as sort of his way into to having a political career. He looked at Neal being his ticket to politics. And I mean, obviously that's problematic in its own. It doesn't completely...
why else do you join the college Democrats, though, to be fair, except for looking for an arrangement?
Right. It doesn't completely level what they came out and said, but it certainly puts something in the air that says we should look further into this.
Chief strategist.
Okay.
What would the college Democrat strategy need to be?
Well, I guess we know what it is now.
How to take down a progressive insurgent, right?
Yes.
So then this obviously influences people to look further into this. A lot of questions arose, even more so. What's going on here? Why would this guy say this? And then this letter would come out. And then The Intercept, to me, this is the bombshell report. There are messages shared with The Intercept detailing from college Democrats in this group with this chief strategist how basically to hit Morse with these allegations. They discuss specifically how to lead him on in these DMs in hopes that he gives them something to hit them with. And if you guys could pull off what their damning hit pulled up from Morse, if you guys could pull it up on screen, I would love for everyone to see this. This is their bombshell. This is what they think will take down Morse. Morse gets sent a message that says, "Thank you, good to see you." I'm assuming this is after one of these events. Morse says, "How's the rest of your weekend?" After being sent the smiley face. The college Democrat says, "Pretty good. I went home last night to surprise my mom for her birthday. HBU, how about you?" Then Morse says, "Oh, that's nice. How was that? I had an event to go to last night to speak. then had a wine tasting party at a friend's house. Now I am in North Adams about to march in a parade. So the person who received that DM screenshots those messages and then posts it in the College Democrat chat where they were strategizing how to take Morse down and said, like, read that message. So don't mind me totally leading him on.
The only thing he seems guilty of there is being boring.
Also, don't mind me leading him on. That is amazing.
Right. Let me
Well,
listen,
he shares before sharing them. He says, not overt, but it's very clear he's not talking to me for like no reason.
Right. I mean, I'm not well versed in what the kids are saying today for different relationship and sexual slangs or whatever. And I'm not in the sort of realm where I'm dating. I've been off the market for quite a while. But I don't know what I am about to march in a parade could possibly mean. If any Zoomer who watches this show would like to let me know that this secretly means that he wants to have sexual relations with someone, please inform me of this, because I don't see how this is the gotcha for them.
Yeah. I mean, all right. I want to disaggregate a few issues here because I tweeted about it, and Twitter is probably not the best place to discuss sensitive issues such as this. It makes us all a little sassy and hyperbolic. But when it first came out, I believed, as we were told, that this was a private letter they sent to Morse that had been leaked somehow, maybe not on purpose. And now we have different people have different standards, different practices for believing accusations of boundary violations or whatever. Some people think that it's best to believe that the accused person is innocent until proven guilty. Some people think it's better to believe the accuser unless we have some reason not to. I tend to err on the side of believing the accuser. I'm going to be honest, but maybe there's a third option that would be better than that, which is not to believe anyone until we find out more. I don't know. I don't have all the answers, but all I said was it is not so out of line for some college Democrats to try to set a boundary in how they interact with someone who is, a mayor and a teacher, blah, 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 even if it seems like a snowflakey boundary to us. Now, more information came out, and I'm like, all right, obviously this seems like bullshit. Separate issue, sleeping with undergrads at the college where you are a professor, even just a visiting lecturer, which is a thing he also admitted to doing, is a bit of an ethical gray area for me. And again, I don't claim to have all the answers. I'm not sure what standard we should set that respects everybody's liberties at the same time that it prevents the most harm possible, because some people are harmed by these kinds of relationships and other people aren't. How do we balance out those different people's needs? I don't know. I was just trying to explore it, but I feel like people mistook that for me like trying to take down Morse or whatever, which was not my primary area of focus here. Like, I think that's a separate issue. I think he certainly is better than Neil and deserves to beat him, but I don't think that precludes discussing an issue like this.
Now for me, I stayed away from this at first because I wanted more information to come out, because again, there was no victim at first. If someone came out and said, this happened to me, it's really easy for me to just, okay, I'm taking this story, I believe you. But for the third party to level these accusations and there to be no follow-up from the people they are allegedly referencing, it means to me that there was no there. Again, I mean, this is an ongoing story. Perhaps someone comes out and alleges they were taken advantage of. I don't know. But at this point, that's not the case. And it has not been the case from since when this story broke. And now this new information came out late last night, where a Business Insider political reporter came out and said that back in April, she actually received an anonymous email from someone at the email address creepyalexmorse@protonmail.com trying to get her to cover this same college Democrat letter. So that means it was written back in April before the college newspaper printed it, which then set off the domino effect for Politico and other organizations to cover it. And she said she felt something was off there, so she didn't cover it at first. And then after seeing the Intercept's report, which explicitly names three of the members of this college Democrat group, she looked back at the email and they said, if you would like to talk to people to corroborate our claims in this letter, here are three people: 2 out of the 3 people they list were named in that group to take down Morse that The Intercept found. So, I mean, there is clearly something going on here. And it sounds like it was a hit job on Alex Morse that sadly also sort of took advantage of some very homophobic tropes, because Alex Morse is an openly gay man running for office. And we could have that discussion like Jamie had, and I think that's a completely legit discussion for your personal beliefs to say that shouldn't be going on. I tend to actually, when it comes to teacher and student dynamic, I sort of agree with you for the most part, Jamie. But again, we're seeing a lot of younger people in the profession, I think. And, you know, to say that 2 consenting adults, someone who's 20, 21 years old, can't date someone who Alex Morse was 30 when he was teaching. I mean, that's less than a 10-year difference. I mean, that's. I mean,
I personally wouldn't date someone in that position. I don't think, right. but I think like the important thing to stress is that 1, it's not against the company's rules or the college's rules, and so I think it becomes a secondary issue at that point. By which I mean not politics. Like I think it's secondary to this stuff, right? Like I think it's more important to talk about the array of power behind Morse and Neil than like an age gap relationship or a professional sort of boundary that's being processed. I think that's better handled in maybe like relationship advice podcasts or like Zadie Smith novels, but I don't think it's politics.
I think all of this stuff is political.
Well, it becomes politics once it comes up, obviously.
Regardless, I mean, look, sexual harm is political, and the ways that we deal with it have to be political, and it doesn't have to be just rape. Like there are gray areas of boundary crossing, like what was alleged in the letter that turned out to be kind of nonsense, but also like the ethical gray areas of what we're talking about, sleeping with a student at the place where you're a teacher. I think it does make sense to have a societal conversation about how these kinds of situations should be handled and what we think is right, because I don't think we've really figured it out yet. And I don't think anyone believes that maybe some people do. I don't think any of us believe that just the rules and the laws that currently exist are sufficient to deal with these issues. But
I mean, I think with relationships between adults, I'm not super concerned about. I also don't think that's a political priority for me right now in this world.
Like I know people who have been harmed by similar power imbalance relationships. I know people who've had them and they were fine. So I think it is an open question of what standard can we set where we prevent some of the harm that's occurring, because when people are harmed, it's a lot harder for them to participate in politics, including in these kinds of conversations, but just like in life in general as well. How do we balance that with what are we giving up by setting a standard too high, setting the bar too high and saying you need to be extra careful in case this is harmful to the person, versus what are you giving up by not doing it? And I was actually DMing with a guy who really wanted to talk to me about it last night, who had a different opinion.
I'm sure
on
he
it.
did, Jamie.
And he was like, he was actually like, it was nice actually. Glenn Greenwald was like, yelling at me and getting mad. It's all good now. I think it came to a satisfying conclusion. But this gay guy DM'd me and he really wanted to talk about it. And he said, I had some like really big age gap or power differential relationships when I was young. It's a common thing for gay guys to do. Some of them were fine. Some of them were harmful, but I got over it. And what I got out of the good ones was worth it to me to have to deal on my own with the harm that occurred from the bad ones. And I hadn't really heard that perspective before.
Yeah, and I think like this is important to people. This stuff is important to people. I just think like in the context of there's campaigns being run and like who's floating what, where, and why, I think we need to consider like what are we really doing here? And that was my first reaction to the story is like, what's the problem here? Like, I mean, that rises to the level of like, this is going to take this kid's campaign down now, which is what it looked like when that first came on. Like people were pulling endorsements from him. But I mean, I don't know.
They've
I think
all
it's
pretty much re-endorsed, by the way. We should say they've all, after this came out, they've all pretty much re-endorsed. I don't think Neil, who, by the way, the chief strategist for the college Democrats,
has he said anything?
Has worked on Neil's campaign too. So there's an explicit connection between the two groups, the campaign and this organization trying to take down Morse. Last I checked, he hasn't, although maybe that changed in the past few hours when we've been doing this show. Maybe Brendan can look that up. But, again, though, a lot of assumptions are being made, like what makes a college student? I mean, I had classmates who were in their 40s and 50s when I went to college. Are you saying that a student who's 40 years old couldn't date a 30-year-old professor if they wanted to, and that the 30-year-old professor would be the one? Like, it's just we're focusing on these things, and it's like, it's. But
I think it's the combo of the power differential between a professor and a student, and the age gap between an undergrad who's 18 to 22
but
and
look
someone
how,
who's like 30.
But look,
gives me pause.
But look how this was handled differently from something like what happened with Katie Hill. It's clear that for a progressive, this is taken one way, and then for a more of a toe-of-the-line establishment Democrat, it's taken another way. What happened to Katie Hill? She had to resign after it became clear that she had inappropriate relations with one of her staffers, and the reason
she wasn't even her staffer anymore when they hooked up.
Right.
Yeah.
But then it came out that the reason this all came out because of the idea that because her husband used revenge porn and uncovered all these things to try to get back at her because they were I forgot, were they splitting up or something was going on there, some personal matter, and she had to resign because of this. But then look what happened with Morse, and we look at what happened to Katie Hill, and we don't look at the issue of her having these relations with a staffer. We focus on the actual problem here, which was the fact that her husband tried to derail her entire life and career for some sort of petty marital issue.
Yeah, that was gross.
It is absolutely gross. But then those same people who feel bad for Katie Hill are taking in this information that just came out, where someone tried to do the same to Alex Morse, derail his life and his career. And their focus is on the secondary issue here, not the main thing.
Look,
I mean,
we could care about all of these things at once, right? I can acknowledge.
That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying not to put one. I'm saying both. The focus should be what happened to Katie Hill and what happened to Morse, not what either of them did.
The separate issues within the Morse story, right? Like, I can acknowledge that it was a politically motivated hit job. I can acknowledge that they used some very homophobic tropes in the way that they pursued it. At the same time that I could say, oh, he admitted to sleeping with some undergrads at the college where he teaches. Maybe I think that's a bit of a gray area that merits some discussion, not just for his case, but in general, because I think it's important to figure out what the social standards should be for these situations. And I can also believe that he would be a massively better congressman than Neil. Like, all of those things are important to think about and talk about. I do worry that, because I've learned a little bit about transformative justice principles in my DSA circles from some nice socialist feminists, and I find it very interesting. But I also worry that in putting, really people doing this in good faith, putting into place best practices for talking about any kind of boundary crossing or any kind of sexual harm, where we always believe the accuser unless we have reason to believe otherwise, where we want to err on the side of caution to even prevent the chance of any harm from occurring. I worry that these good faith practices are being taken advantage of by people on the right who want to destroy our movement. And I don't know the right answer to that. I just don't. And I would really like some space to discuss it. But it seems like most of these discussions, I'm not talking to you guys, but they kind of descend into people in different camps just firing pot shots at each other and not really coming to any kind of synthesis.
Right. Let's move on. But I want to clarify that when you say right, you mean it gets weaponized by anyone right of the left, because that includes establishment Dems who are really taking this sort of this social justice and woke language to try to attack the left now.
Yeah, those people are not on the left.
Yes. All right, let's move on. Do you want to take another call? Let's take another call. 720. What's your name? Where are you calling from? 720, you're on the air. I gotta let you go if you don't say something in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Sorry, buddy.
Hello?
Oh, I just pressed as she said it. Sorry.
Listen to your phone, folks.
727. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hi, I'm Tori from Florida.
Hey, Tori, how you doing?
Hey, I just want everybody's really shitty about the whole Kamala Harris thing, but what everyone needs to remember, if we actually flip the Senate to the Democrats, Bernie Sanders becomes the chairman of the Senate Budget Committee, which is a little bit more power than the vice president, kind of almost handing our man the checkbook. So that's how important it is. Everybody's upset about, but we still need to get out there and we have to flip that Senate. It's really important. We give Bernie the checkbook. I remember him saying on the campaign trail, Medicare for all could be done through budget reconciliation. So maybe we should work on that.
Yeah, get a Bernie that seat, and also, get Nancy Pelosi out of there and vote for Shahid Buttar.
Yeah, good call.
Maybe there should be like a move. Maybe there should be like a movement that frames electing Democrats in that way for the left. That could possibly be.
That's one of the reasons I wanted to call, because I hear all this stuff about Kamala Harris and all this, and progressives are mad, but thing is we have to look at the power we can take, and we have to move forward towards taking that power. Putting Bernie in that seat is really taking a big step towards getting what we want.
Great point.
Yeah, and I want to play this Jessica Rain for Senate ad here, because if you want to hurt Joe Biden, if you're pissed at Joe Biden, you could try to send him a message by not voting for him. I'm sure he'll really give a shit.
Real quick too, don't forget about Paula Jean Swearengin in West Virginia.
Okay, cool.
Oh, right,
yeah.
right.
Yeah, but Jessica Rain here
I'm gonna let you go, buddy.
Can knock out Chris Coons, which is who's the guy who's I don't know if we should have allowed all this franchise. I don't know if it's worked out.
The franchise is hard.
Yeah, it's hard. I don't know. Yeah, exactly. He was just lamenting how hard it was. Not that he didn't want it, the idea of having people vote. Anyway, Jessica Rain, and people this is a pandemic. People need to open their ideas up about which races are winnable. I think. I'm not saying Shahid's definitely going to be Pelosi, but the world is going up in flames right now, and people are going to get madder and madder at the incumbents. So let's play this for Jessica Rain.
My name is Jessica Skarain, and I'm a Democrat running for U.S. Senate because I know a better future is possible. We are in the middle of a pandemic and struggling with a public health crisis when far too many of us are uninsured. We're struggling with an economic crisis where people are working 2 and 3 jobs just trying to keep a roof over their heads. And we're in the midst of a racial justice crisis where people are demanding change and getting brutalized by our government. But these issues didn't just start with COVID. They aren't new.
Put on the gas!
I saw them as the board president of a nonprofit focused on the needs of girls from under-resourced neighborhoods. And I've been all over Delaware and talked to people from all different types of communities. And yet, the stories I hear are always the same. We need to address those root causes and fix those problems rather than continually treating the symptoms. I grew up the oldest of 3 sisters, and that taught me the importance of taking care of each other and looking out for the more vulnerable people in our lives. And it's more important now than ever that we take care of each other so that everyone in our country can thrive. It's time to guarantee health care as a right with Medicare for all. We need to raise the minimum wage to at least $15 an hour and expand Social Security. We need to demilitarize our police and end private prisons. We need real climate action now. While my opponent takes money from the very industries that are responsible for the problems we need to solve, my campaign is entirely funded by real people like you. This is about us, regular working people taking back power. And as your senator, I will fight for a better future. It starts with your vote on September 15th.
It's a good political ad, yeah. Also, one thing that strikes me is, I knew there were still more primaries coming up, but just seeing September 15 there on the screen, one thing that, I try to look at the bright side of things, as people know. Obviously, that's why I named my podcast Doomed. But I try to look on the bright side of things. And one thing from this pandemic that happened was these states really spread apart their primaries. And I think that's been really good for the left because we've been able to jump from one primary, spend a few weeks on that, to another primary, spend a few weeks on that, to another primary, spend a few weeks on that, and on and on and on. And I hope, I mean, it's probably not once they see how many Justice Democrat endorsed candidates end up winning at the end of this election season. It probably won't stay this way, but it should. The primaries shouldn't all be piled on top of each other over the course of like 2.5 months. You know, it's
or at least it should just be later. Maybe I mean, it's just you see why they wanted to wrap up the presidential primary early. You know, like longer, because I feel like the longer you expose things. I mean, Bernie rose throughout 2016 until it ended, right? Like people just liked him more and more and more. I mean, it's weird. I feel some like I don't know about you, but I feel some envy toward the UK system of elections where it's like, oh, we just decided Parliament can just decide, or the Prime Minister can just decide to throw an election, and in 3 weeks or whatever it is, they'll have an election. Whereas it's like we know for eternity when every election is going to be, and the corporate sort of apparatuses can line up all their cash and get ready for it. But like, it seems like there's something. The longer Americans pay attention, the smarter the choices they make again. I just keep coming back to the Cory Bush victory, and how like people chose Cory, and that's awesome.
Yeah, they did. I mean, also shout out to the movement in the streets. Like, why didn't she win this time around? And why did she win this time around? Running on a platform of racial justice, defunding the police, redistributive programs. I submit it had a little something to do with the massive movement in the streets right now in favor of Black lives and other things as well.
Yeah. If we knock Coons out, I mean, I've been thinking about Pelosi just because I really don't like Nancy Pelosi. But that's a long shot for Shahid. But I mean, I'm sure Skirane's, I think Skirane's doable. I mean, people like, I think Bobby Big Wheel said on Twitter, this the other day, like we're in a type of firm, like usually in elections, it's like, well, we don't know what could happen. Something big could happen before the election. We know big things are going to happen before the election, and it's probably going to hurt the incumbents more than it already has.
All right.
Hopefully.
All right. Is there any story or clip that you guys wanted to get to before we continue on with a few calls and then wrap it up, I guess?
Well, maybe we should do this fun one with Governor DeSantis.
Ooh, I love fun ones with Governor DeSantis.
So, all right.
Set us up, Jamie. Take us to the promised land of Florida.
Okay. So yesterday we played a clip of the football coach or former football coach. He's a sports guy, Lou Holtz.
He's a commentator now.
All right. Sportsman Lou Holtz comparing college football players going back to the game to the Allied invasion of Normandy. Because, as the great Marxist theorist Moishe Postone once said, fascism is when colleges don't play football. And the less football they play, the fascister it is, folks. So now, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis is like, okay, I'll see you an Adolf Hitler analogy and raise ya an Osama bin Laden. I'll play that clip.
Martin County Superintendent Lori Gaylord told me today that she viewed reopening her schools as a mission akin to a Navy SEAL operation. Just as the SEALs surmounted obstacles to bring Osama bin Laden to justice, so too would the Martin County school system find a way to provide parents with a meaningful choice of in-person instruction or continued distance learning. All in, all the time.
Wow. So the metaphor there is based on them both having obstacles. So the obstacles is the thing.
Mm-hmm.
I guess
it's Zero Dark School Day.
It's the equivalent of this video I saw on Twitter. Brendan, I just sent it to you. Can you pull it up? Literally what he said is the equivalent to this video I saw on Twitter.
It's also like hurdle jumpers. Oh wow.
What it is, it's someone typed out the words bin Laden in the notepad on their computer, and then backspaced a few letters and combined it to Biden.
Can't
I
spell,
never thought about it that way before.
That's literally the equivalent of what we just heard.
Spell Bin Laden without Biden, I guess.
Hey, let's do some free association. When I say obstacles, what's the first thing that comes to your mind? Is it the Navy SEALs? Because if it is, you might be a Republican governor.
I like how he credited to the county commissioner running the schools, and then like just that she was talking about the Navy SEALs, probably because there's like a SEALs base or something down there in Florida. But he extended the metaphor to a SEAL Team 6 operation to take out the man who orchestrated 9/11.
Yeah,
And it's like to get our kids back. I mean, at this point, it does seem like we have about as good a hold reopening schools as finding Bin Laden for the.
Yeah, it's going to be like the Bin Laden raid. It's going to be like, okay, yeah, Miss Tannis's class went down, and that's because that's like the helicopter going down at the start of the Bin Laden raid. But we're just going to keep on with the mission, and then we'll get out of here on the same helicopter. That's what the school open is going to be.
It's kind of ironic, right? Because the policies that they are pushing and saying that this is like the same thing as taking out Hitler or Osama bin Laden will kill more people than died on 9/11. Kind of makes you think.
I mean, in a couple days, in a week.
Yeah, maybe that wasn't as uplifting as I thought it would be.
We do it is. I mean, 1,500 people died yesterday. That's like a third of a 9/11.
It's hard to be uplifting when talking about any news right now.
That's been the case for like the past 4-ish years at least. But it's definitely more pronounced, I would say, in the last month.
Yeah. Right. Harsh realm, folks. Tough times. Should we take a call?
Fun clip, folks.
Yeah, let's go to some. Yeah.
Let's do a final call.
Let's do a call. Yeah. 224. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hi, is this me?
Yeah, you are on the air. What's up?
Oh, holy crap. Okay, great. My name's Nico. I'm a first-time caller, long-time listener. I'm 19. I live in Chicago. And love the show. Condolences to Michael.
Thank you. What would you like to talk about, first-time caller? It's a great, perfect day to call in your first time, by the way.
Yeah, I know. It's actually crazy. So yeah, you guys were just talking about the school situation. My mom is a assistant as a teacher, and they're forcing her to go back to school. And the school essentially has told them that if you even try to unionize or if you organize, we're going to fire you. So I'm actually like debating on whether I should go into the school and cuss them out or if my mom should.
Your mom should form a union and bring all of them with her to cuss them out.
And document stuff.
Yes.
Keep that stuff in writing, like those threats. And if you need somebody to publicize, the phone number.
Right.
Yeah, it's illegal to fire people in retaliation for organizing activities, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
But then you can file a lawsuit and get a bunch of money.
It's just crazy to me that in the middle of a pandemic, we're literally forcing teachers and kids to go back to school. I mean, it literally is like something out of a movie. But to be honest, I'm not surprised. Like the last 4 years, as Matt said.
I think he just cut out. He cut out. I don't know why. He's
they
still
got
on the
him.
line. It's on his end. It's what happens when you try to talk about forming a union, I guess. Just oof. No, but I mean, I have a 5-year-old, and he is going to be in kindergarten. And here in New York, we have talk about the schools reopening. I mean, New York is in a better place than other states right now, but I mean, it's because people in New York are actually sort of listening to the health guidelines of wearing a mask and social distancing much better than I would say other states are. And if we open the schools, that sort of could be a setback because it's harder to do. But if you really want to open the schools, which is what they seem like they want to do, there's some obvious things to do, which they don't seem to want to do. Like, in my opinion, listen, if you're going to open the schools, it's very clear that there's a certain age range where remote learning doesn't work, and a certain age range where you could remote learn for the most part. Obviously, there are exceptions with children with educational difficulties or disabilities. But for the most part, you could have children over a certain age and certain grades continue to work remotely Well, you have younger students then come in and you have more room to social distance and carry out more healthy schooling. Or you could have schooling, have classes outdoors, because it seems like as long as you, again, wear a mask and even the social distancing thing so much doesn't seem to, if you're outdoors, if you wear, because look at the protests and how there's been no outbreak connected to them. Wear a mask outdoors and just use sanitizer and take care of yourself and everybody around you. And you could pretty much socialize and have classes outside, it seems, if you're at least in New York, where we're at much lower rates right now. But there's just some very basic things. And of course, no one discusses the fact that these buildings that we hold schools, the school buildings, they are inadequately prepared for this, like ventilation systems that are either just not working or haven't been updated in decades, or just don't exist even. I mean, we haven't really been taking care of our school buildings or any sort of infrastructure for education for generations, I think you could say. So how are we supposed to suddenly update it all in a matter of, what is it, August now? Less than a month for a pandemic? I mean, this is just failure at all levels. No preparation should have been going on literally since they realized the schools were not reopening for the last semester in like April.
Exactly. That's the second you should have started this.
Yeah. This, like Jessica Rain said, this is a crisis that has been going on since way before COVID ever came to this country.
It's so depressing because you see we thought we had beaten back this charter impulse, at least in the Democratic Party, and then you get a disaster capitalism moment like this, and I'm worried that every kid's going to have like some sort of like website school now that they have to, like, I don't know, it's just the horrible digital futures.
Well, the rich kids get private tutors at small groups.
Yeah.
Everyone else is shit out of luck.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen VC guys openly just tweet out, hey, if you're a teacher worried about going back to school, I'll pay you whatever times your salary for you to teach a small class of my children and a few of their friends. I've just openly saying that as if there's no shame, no realizing how there's something wrong there. It's incredible. It's just,
I mean,
there's
if the
completely different
government
system
would pay for every kid to have a tutor, that would be absolutely fine. But that's not what's happening here.
Yeah.
And as if inequality isn't bad enough already, let's see what happens when, a small percentage of kids have private tutors and the rest of them are just trying to learn online.
Let me go back to 308. He's the person, or he or she's the person who was the first caller when the system wasn't set up correctly. Let me give them a chance because they were actually number one ahead of everyone. 308. What's your name? Where are you calling from? Everything's now working. You are on the line.
Hey, it's Kowalski from Nebraska. And
Hey, Kowalski.
I to call in when Jamie wanted to know about the explosiveness of grain.
I knew it. I sent up the Kowalski bat signal.
So let us hear.
Yes, you sent out the ear of corn into the sky, and I knew I had to call. So.
So tell us about it.
Actually, the reason I was, so the stuff that exploded was a fertilizer that we don't use much anymore in that kind of a volatile state, mainly because of the Oklahoma City bombing. Like, I can get access to it, but I haul fertilizer, and you have to have certain permits to do that here. And it's practically stored in bunkers. But like a grain silo can explode if there's like enough dust, because it creates a massive volatile explosion within the silo. And basically it's like the echo effect. It builds up and then the silo will explode. It's pretty cool. Something like that happened about 3 years ago near Sedan, Nebraska. But the reason I was calling in was because you guys have all, are pretty good content creators. I mean, the best, clearly. And I was thinking of making a series of videos to try to target progressive ideas towards rural populations and why those would be, valuable to us in the long run. And I was just curious what would be like the best way to go about that. Create like content for established channels, try to make your own channel and not care if anyone uses it, or something along those lines. And I can hop off the audio quality is bad. So
Yeah, your audio quality is better than it's ever been. But I would say make a YouTube channel. We'll help promote it. And when you make your little clips, we'll also play them on the show. That's the easiest way I know how to cultivate somebody's following.
Yeah, and is there a local radio station where you live where you could maybe have a show one day a week or something like that?
no, there isn't. The last good one I think might have just been lost to QAnon.
Oh,
you know what? Though?
I'm tempted to go back to my Toctopus roots and rally the people in the hills to just not fall for this kind of shit. Because actually, just to go on a
Hey,
slight
I
tangent,
just want to say,
talking a
post
lot
your
of
stuff to those
people
message
and,
boards.
Yeah,
all right.
it sounds like your area could really use your media project.
Yeah. Lurk the radio station. This is advice to everybody out where, like, if you're not in a major city, is dominate the comment sections in any sort of local media, like especially the radio stations and the local papers.
Yep.
All right.
You
Sounds
tell
good.
him the truth,
Well,
Kowalski.
you guys have a good one. You guys have a good one. Happy birthday to Michael. We certainly miss our blues brother Brooks, and just keep up his work, guys. We all appreciate it, and you all have a good one. Bye.
Thanks, Kowalski.
Thank you, Kowalski. Appreciate that. Has he hung up? Because he could essentially take over the show right now because the calling system has frozen and I can't remove him from the line. Let's get to some IMs, I guess, and then we'll wrap up, right? Just a few nice IMs because it's Michael's birthday. I wanted to read. Canadian Hero, excuse me. Hi, Matt, Jamie, and Brandon. I just subscribed today as a symbolic birthday present for Michael. Have been a YouTube viewer since 2016. Krauser, suggestion for a name for the Thursday crew, sung to the tune of Benny and the Jets, Jamie and the Mats. Jamie and okay, you get it. I'm not gonna do it.
Here for it.
That's actually probably the best one we've got so far.
I like Jamie and the Mats too. It leaves out Brendan, but maybe that's for the best. Magnus McLaughlin, happy birthday from Maine, Michael. Best Squapo, Binder. I loved your interview last week about the Army and Twitch. Love the Thursday crew. Rest in peace, Michael. Thank you, Best Guapo. And if anyone wants to listen to that, doomedpod.com for the audio version, or youtube.com/Matt Binder to watch the live stream recording. This one's for you, Lek. Gregory says, does Matt believe about the elves in Iceland?
I would say probably not, no.
The only elves I believe in are the ones you meet at DMT. Those are real. The rest are pretend. Next question.
No fairies, no elves. What fun are you, Matt? Okay. Someone asked us to play that Ruben clip, which we did. This is Ben's deviated septum. Rest in power, Michael. There is a big hole in the left discourse when it comes to international politics and a global left solidarity. I just want to say thank you for all you've done in educating us on a multitude of international left figures like Lula and Thomas Sankara. Love you. Miss you, brother. Agreed. Absolutely. Thank you for those beautiful words, Ben. It's deviated septum. Real Gamer says, sure, Lek takes help from fairies across the entire Zelda franchise, then throws them under the bus on air.
Poorly spotted. I never really played Zelda.
Yeah,
not a Nintendo gamer. Sorry, guys. A little bit too grown up for that.
Well paired.
Zelda's a wonderful story. I love the story of Zelda. I would make a great movie or TV show, but it's a long. You got to be in it for the long haul. You got to really sit down and play that game.
Yeah.
Chris from Taiwan, happy birthday, Michael. So terribly sorry you weren't here for Ben Shapiro's review of Wet Ass P Word.
Oh my God.
Honestly, that was the thing that I was like,
Yeah.
Michael is communicating from the beyond to us and has given us this gift.
I just imagine you were watching the video and it makes me laugh, right?
He was definitely watching the actual video.
Yeah. Well, and I could I could hear him do a Ben Shapiro, like literally his own version of Ben Shapiro doing exactly that. Yeah. Which I guess we don't really, we have Ben Shapiro doing it, but Michael would have made it better.
A bucket and a mop.
Michael would have been a better Ben Shapiro than Ben Shapiro. I'm just trying to see what's Silver Ball Stud says ContraPoints is at 993,000 subscribers. If everyone watching now subscribe to that channel, we could vicariously beat David Pakman to 1 million.
Yeah, we throw the baton forward to ContraPoints.
I'd be fine with that.
Yeah, go for it.
Well, I mean, technically, couldn't
Damn,
we just say
ContraPoints is close to 1 million. Damn.
I mean, technically, can't we just do that to TYT and then just say we've beat David Pakman many times over? I mean, how many millions of subscribers do they have?
No.
Daya says, hey, Matt ×2, Jamie and Brendan, longtime MR listener and member. Matt Binder, I have listened long enough to remember when you were still on MR. Nice to hear you hosting, especially today on Michael Brooks's birthday. And while I'm a Gen Xer, I am a doomed member. Love you all. Greetings from Denmark. Thank you, Daya.
Denmark.
For all those kind words. Yes.
Denmark.
You're right.
Is Michael saying Denmark is Chris Matthews? Denmark.
Dr. Demon Seaman says Sam should offer to do a show on shrooms. That'll get the subscriber numbers zooming past Pakman.
Oh God. I would say yes to that if we didn't have to be there for it. Because if you think Sam's a bundle of nerves now when technology fails, I don't know what he'd be like on mushrooms.
Just a few more messages I want to get to because they're about Michael. So just a few more minutes, guys. Famous Darwin, happy birthday to Michael. One of my earliest memories of MR is old Matt on camera on a Matt and Michael Monday wearing a Crash t-shirt. I know I'd found my forever home or scene, if you will. Oh, thank you. I really appreciate that. That's sweet. Yeah, Michael and I enjoyed that team. Michael, I was probably more of an acquired taste for most people, but Michael hooked you all right away. So we were a good team that way. Jay Tingle says, I found one particular bit featuring right-wing Mandela to be the apotheosis of the genre. The broadcast on August 15th, 2017 featured lengthy mocking of Gavin McInnes and a final takedown by right-wing Mandela. It's my favorite among a long list of great reactionary Mandela takes. After a tape of McInnes and Alex Jones commiserating over some crap, at 1:35 and change, we hear the sad tape of Gavin complaining about being disowned by former friends. Shortly after, we get to Michael's response, as good as it gets. Maybe you guys can pull that for next week and we could play it on next week's show. August 15th, 2017.
Sounds good.
Peasant Chick says, is Matt going to be on the Thursday show for good or just for the month of August? Well, as of right now, I am booked to join you guys for the month of August. If it extends past that, I have no idea. I don't think Sam even knows what he's doing after August. But if you like what you hear here, feel free to contact Sam and let him know that you like the quartet. Who knows? You could influence him. Maybe the quartet would prefer to be a trio, but who knows? Invisible Ninja says, this ninja is now a dues-paying member of MR, Antifada, Literary Hangover, and Doomed. Much love to you all. New comic for Michael at, and this is the handle, at People's Comic _. Wow, you joined all of us and you dropped a Michael comic. If I had a shofar, I'd play it for you, Invisible Ninja. Thank you so much.
That gets a follow from me, for sure.
And at us the comic so we can make sure to retweet you. Because I want to retweet. If you're tweeting anything, art or anything like that related to Michael's birthday or the show, let me add us and we'll see it better than, it just going on your feed where we may not see it. Someone
Last
put up
one?
a send. Gregory says someone put a send the kids to school billboard in Sacramento, and also you don't play grown-up games, Matt. You cosplay as a cowboy dandy. What? And Champagne Kami with the fine. Wait, someone said, Richard Oak said, how about Sam smoking a bunch of salvia to gain subscribers.
He's gonna have a bad trip and start seeing lavender everywhere.
Yeah, guys, Sam's not the typical YouTuber age. You have to keep these things in consideration if you want to keep him around.
Right. And the final two IMs of the day, because they're short. Leatron, I believe, says, I'm very sad that Michael wasn't around for Ben Shapiro's WAP tweet. And Champagne Kami says, my last DM with Michael was him randomly checking in on me in late March and wishing each other well. He was a kind and caring soul, and compassion is the greatest gift he gave me. Happy birthday, brother. Rest in bliss. Heart and prayer emoji. Champagne Kami, yes, Michael was... I'm sure everyone has their own, final conversation or DM or message with Michael, and they'll all be, they're all showcase just how Michael was always just, really just an all around great guy. I mean, that just encompasses it all, right? I mean, all around great person. Happy birthday, Michael.
Birthday, Michael. Brendan, you got pilot light? There we go.
Sam's back tomorrow, and I will see you guys all next week.
Bye.